just to give the audience a chance to calibrate, at the beginning of the show, we are going to be dealing with the Janel Grant case, which of course is a case that deals with sexual assault and the kind of methods and languages that goes along with that. So, at the top of the show, this is just a content warning for those who just to give people a heads up. And thank you so much, and please enjoy the rest of the show.
What's up? What's up? What's up? This is Dr. Laird, aka KG Buto, aka you know, the Great Bukaki, aka Hiroshi Hustle, aka you're gonna like this one, Suavio Vega, and this is State of Wrestling, and of course with State of Wrestling, I always gotta have this trios. We are Santo and Espantos, Los Espantos. We got here, of course, Arturo.
Los Villanos. There we go.
Los Villanos. Okay. We got Villano 3, Villano 4, Villano 5. And our Villano 5 here is BJ Bethel. What's up, BJ?
Hey man, thanks for guys for having me back, and I appreciate the inclusion in the State of Wrestling Trios Championship as I see it.
Hey man, we always appreciate a run-in.
We're the Jersey Triad, the Freebirds,
I like Jersey Triad. Yes,
the Jersey Triad was great. That was DDP was very. He saw the tag division. He was like, "We're gonna get Bam Bam and Canyon in on this. We're gonna kick some ass. I'm gonna rest my busted up back," and then they just closed it down so that WWE could take advantage of the same idea. But anyway, nobody has any idea what I'm talking about because that's 1999. But I just want to say thanks for having me back.
Yeah, brother. And we were talking off the air about this, so I am going to give this stage to Flying BJ because we were talking about the new happenings in the Janel Grant case. And you definitely had takes on it, and we have our takes, but I wanted to give the floor to you, sir.
So, there's not really been. So the big news, case-wise, is that Coker had Dr. Carlon Coker, who was the personal physician of Vince McMahon, and he was also treating Janel Grant. And they're obviously been in for the last year and a half or so. He's been in a battle with Janel Grant in court. They're asking Connecticut courts to compel Coker and his Peak Wellness Company to provide discovery items. It would be like medical records, payment records. They're also asking for other information related to Grant's treatment there, and possible. And one of the things people forget is one of the things they were looking for was possible RICO violations. Coker just lost a motion in court that would have greatly kind of. I don't know at this point much is going to help him. The court's pretty much forcing them to move forward with discovery as they're asking the Coker side. They don't. The judge there is pretty much decided this isn't going to go to court, but it's just going to be settled outside of court, and it's going to base and the way this is cruising is they're just going to have to provide what it is that Janel Grant's team's asking for.
They have tried to compel arbitration on this, but they have not been able to.
Yeah, the Coker claims and Peak Wellness claims that Grant, they've given all the relevant materials to Grant, but some of the timing of it doesn't work well. Like, they did not provide a lot of these records until the day they filed this actual suit in Connecticut court. They're also saying there's a lot of items missing. They're also trying to say that, they don't have to provide certain items. It's just usual kind of court firing back to each other, but it does affect her civil suit against Vince McMahon, and some of this could potentially open up liability to Coker, for how they, because it was one of the Peak Wellness employees who was involved in an assault. It was probably the most horrific part of her civil complaint against McMahon was a Peak Wellness physical therapist was involved in an assault with where Vince kind of coerced her to have sex with this guy with him, and then there somebody defecated on her head.
Disgusting.
If you guys want to cut that out, I understand, or you want to bleep it. Yeah. That's not something, but it is part of the criminal complaint. That was a Peak Wellness employee, according to their filings in the case. He's no longer working there, and he hasn't been named. And he hasn't been named to defend it in the civil suit.
I think if we might want to put a timestamp on that and just basically mention that like there's some content on that. I think people who have read the suit. I mean, I've read the suit and I was aware of that, but I do think that it's probably. No, terrible idea to put
I'll definitely do a warning at the top of the show.
Yeah, I mean, like the issue with like, some of these lawsuits is like, Jesus Christ, everything has to have a content warning with like the WWE lawsuit.
Yeah. Thing is, it's for a PG wrestling company, it's just it's kind of, I don't know if ironic that the behavior's so bad this is backstage work stuff too. This isn't like some of this happened off stage, but I mean a lot of this is stuff that was happening around the office. The other thing that's come out is 2 days ago, Erica Nolan, who's an attorney in Connecticut, she's a civil attorney, and Janel Grant testified before Connecticut lawmakers about a state Senate bill there that would help. Basically, it would take like the Speak Out Act as federal law and apply it to state law in Connecticut, where you can't use NDAs to hush up people for criminal behavior that's been done to them. Basically, NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, the idea is to keep people from using, leaving a company and using trade secrets and selling them or using the profit or hurting the business. But it's been documented with WWE because of the number of payoffs and things like that has been seen through the company. You can see all that at the SEC, in the SEC filings. But basically that's not what's happening with a lot of these NDAs. They're being used to cover up sex assaults and sexual harassment and even human trafficking allegations. And there's that in a lot of companies. There's laws like now in the federal books. There's not a lot on the state books, and this is something that Grant's spoken out twice against in the last month.
BJ, I'm gonna put a pause right there just so I have I can put the content. And it's like nothing ever happened.
All right, so in the Coker suit, it was there's a lot of different factors that were involved. One of them was this is something that people tend to forget about. It was a Peak Wellness employee, which is Coker's company, that assaulted Janel Grant with Vince McMahon, and there was a horrific act involved. That's something that's been kind of well publicized part of the complaint. As part of filings that later came out, Peak Wellness revealed that this employee no longer that's been accused. He hasn't been criminally charged, and he isn't part of the civil suit as a defendant, at least as of yet. That could change, but right now he's no longer part of Peak Wellness. But the thing that kind of has become the news the last couple days is Janel Grant made an appearance with her attorney. It's a Connecticut-based attorney, Erica Nolan, and they appeared before the Connecticut Senate, and we're talking about Senate Bill 333, which would it would basically take the same protections as the Speak Out Act, which was passed in 2022 to keep people from using NDAs to shut up sex assault victims and sexual harassment victims at work, and it would apply that to Connecticut state law. I think this kind of stuff's really important on the state level because a lot of what's happened with McMahon, and I think the one kind of case where this is super hyper egregious was just look at what happened with the speeding and the crash incident with the woman from New York. He was cited. There's definitely a corruption issue when it comes to WWE and Vince McMahon in Connecticut. There's just stories upon stories upon stories of his bad driving, yet he has no bad driving record. He was cited for driving over 85 and was giving a reckless op charge, basically. And what happened was he rear-ended a woman driving towards New York, I guess. Maybe it was back the other way. As a Connecticut state trooper was following him and captured all this on the dash cam. And if he would have hit her a little bit on point on her bumper, she would have sent her up the side of a hill, and her car probably would have rolled at about 55, 60 miles per hour. It would have been bad. Luckily that her it didn't happen. In the middle of this, and this is where things get really egregious, is that the cop has McMahon in the car, and they tell him they clocked him at doing 115, but they only cited him for 85. Then they get to court for the ticket. They basically lock the files, seal them. They go into the court, and basically after a few months, because he takes like a probationary driver's course, he doesn't get cited for anything. Now, how many people I don't think if Arturo, Larry, or me were to go to Connecticut and drive 115 miles per hour and slam in the back of a woman who's driving, just trying to get to work, and I don't think we would just walk out of the state of Connecticut with no driving points on our record.
No.
It's just, to me, it's just part of a bigger systematic problem there when it comes to Vince McMahon. I think people need to start asking too, is why have we not seen state charges on?
I could argue that Connecticut is not known for being up and up on some of this stuff.
Yes.
And I'm not claiming it's a corrupt set school, but the other part is like, what's interesting to me is I think that particular law on the NDAs in Connecticut would be really problematic for WWE. I would suspect that it could lead to a lot of further legal action.
Because
I don't want to
it's not just the NDAs from Vince McMahon that would
it's
be.
Any NDA.
It's any
Yes.
NDA.
Any NDA related to sexual misconduct would be fair game. Even essentially, it's saying that like you cannot compel someone through an NDA to not report that kind of criminal activity. And given what we know, what we hear, and what we see from people talking, I would imagine that it's not an ideal thing for WWE to happen, right? I don't want to speculate, right? Because but we're all adults here, so we know what kind of liability we're looking at.
The other thing with this is, when you're getting into the mental health stuff on this is something that hasn't been talked about, and it's something Janel Grant, when she was speaking before the Connecticut Senate the other day, she puts very eloquently, which is you're living in this shadow of all the time of silence, and it's a cone, and you're by yourself, and for just no reason at all, a law firm's going to send you a letter basically threatening to ruin you if you say anything, whether you've done nothing or not. And I think we know some of the backstory of like how her name got leaked and all this, and who leaked it. And it just, I think it really puts into point, like when you're on the wrong side of an NDA, just the kind of pressure you could be put under by a company, especially a company where like WWE, where there's just so many people that have signed it up there with NDAs. They have to sign an NDA because of stuff that's happened there.
I mean, just the idea that they would use this as story fodder, and they basically
that was the other thing. Like her life's been, they basically took what was the abuse to her and tried to turn it into the storyline with Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio on TV, and then they try to deny it, and it's like, well, this kind of stuff's happened all the time where Vince takes his own real life indiscretions. And WWE people make, he wasn't at the time in the company, just part of creative, but, they decided to take, basically where Vince was, forcing her to send, pictures of herself over a phone, and then they turned it into a storyline with Liv Morgan, and it was fitting details of the Grant complaint, and this is something they've done dozens and dozens of times.
Well, the rumor out there about like how a lot of the women who were his mistresses, right, that leaked over to some of the storytelling. That's a rumor that's been out there. I'm not going to get into the details on that because obviously that's stuff that's out there. But it is, if you go back and watch some of the stuff that they put on camera, and in hindsight and knowing the stuff that you do about him and kind of Linda, You put this into context now, and yeah, they've done this all the time. So like when they were basically saying, we're not, oh no, we're not turning this to a story, it was like it stretched kayfabe.
Yeah. It's they'll use deniability and all that, and I don't they probably didn't sit down in a room and decide we're going to put it on the record that we're going to use the complaint for that. It was never done anything like that. But this, you go back to the Boca Raton complaint against him, which at the time was barely publicized at all, and that was when he allegedly assaulted or tried to assault a teen, like a 19, 20-year-old woman who was working at a Boca Raton tanning salon. And then they turned that into some fabulous kind of thing involving a woman and another wrestler. That was some kind of really out of weird sketch at the time in 2006. It's like this stuff. I mean, there's enough people that's talked and confirmed that, yeah, they like to use this stuff as storyline fodder. And I think a lot of it's a way to hold power over the victims. I mean, just if to understand just what they'll go to, Grant's complaint. I haven't heard Vince McMahon deny anything in the complaint as far as the actions.
Yeah, I mean,
what they have said is that she she agreed to do all of it. She was fine with all of it, and she was in love with him. And right now, she's just a scorned ex-girlfriend. And then they run things like the supposed love letter stuff in the New York Post story, and it's like and even the parts that Vince McMahon's team like gave to the Post. This is stuff that's meant to hurt people mentally and do severe harm to them. And it's like the stuff that they sent, even though it even shows that, Epstein had victims that wrote him letters too. This is a thing predators do. It doesn't confirm one way or the other whether, Vince McMahon, is innocent of this stuff. This is part and parcel behavior. And, and in Grant, even in the letter that they provided, was like, yeah, this is my 42nd draft trying to write this love letter, and then it found out that she was using love letters and parts of stuff she was Googling and finding online. All that's confirmed, by the way. And, but it just gets into why, things need to really change in how this thing is operated. And it goes to it gets into weird mindsets. And I think everybody's seen the Shelly Martinez comments. If they haven't, she's a former WWE worker. I don't know when she worked there, but, she's got her own podcast, of course. The host is some bald guy named Chad, of course. And she just was going on rants today against Grant. And, she was, I mean, I'll give you a quote. This is the kind of stuff she took. He goes, I'm talking old school me here, but Janel Grant needs to get her ass beat. I'm not saying like someone should physically harm her, but life needs to beat her ass because this entitled little bitch has this list of demands. Now she's over here flipping the script. And it's this mindset. If you read through this thing, she's the sad part of this thing was I feel sorry for Martinez reading this because she lives in this world where women are just basically, it's the way she's
Objects.
portraying this. Maybe I'm wrong. What's that?
They're treated like objects.
Yeah,
You're
they're
supposed to accept the
commodities.
abuse.
Yeah,
You're
she even
supposed to
talks
accept the
about
abuse.
she even talks about where she's trying to get jobs in acting and modeling, and she mentions this twice during this podcast about Grant, where she thought about going to Dubai, where basically you're just a super high paid sex worker, and even said that some of the things you have to do is like the worst of the Grant complaint, and it's
Right
me
now is
it's
not
just
a good time to be an escort in Dubai.
no, well, it's never a good time to be an escort in the Middle East. And I think that's something that's another huge story that'll break down the line is, human trafficking and, sex workers in the Middle East, especially for the rich people there. But but I think the thing is like Martinez is also giving kind of like, I've sent she's got a blog. I tried, it said, they sent us a message. I don't know if it's what kind of message service it is, but I put my email address. I said, hey, I just want to talk to you about how you say things work in WWE. It's like you're talking about, this is some kind of like agreement, and it's almost like something like a sex worker does. This is really what it's like back there. And I've had people tell me it's like that. I've had tell me people it's not quite like that or this organized. But the way Martinez paints it, it's a lot more more stamped than people have been led to believe in the past.
Yeah, just to set the timeline, she was in WWE at the same time as Ashley Massaro. Just to put the timeline.
So that was 2000s.
I mean, there's stuff out there, and I've mentioned this before. There's like a shoot interview with like Roddy Piper, of all people, talking about people taking this kind of liberty with him backstage.
He was 15.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's stories like, obviously there's the Tony Atlas interview, which I think is in the one of the WWE things where he's talking about the booker for WWE taking liberties with him, right? And like people ask him like, why didn't you tell anybody? And Tony's like, who am I going to tell? It's the booker, right?
Yeah.
Like,
that was one of those Legends of Wrestling like panel things, and him being that vulnerable to admit that is kind of it's great. It's great to admit that on camera.
I don't think Tony. I mean, Tony is like, but if you, this is the kind of thing that has happened, and I think that's something that goes into kind of the way people or the business has been run forever, and really, you know, sometimes people have tried to grow up, and I think like wrestling is in a better place than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's absolutely in a much better place. But I'll tell you this, just to hit this, and I don't want to interrupt what you're on because I know you're doing real good. But I just want to say, a lot of this is because of AEW. And a lot of this is because of guys like the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Ring of Honor, Sinclair getting involved. You know, it being more professionalized, being made more legit. And a lot of the antagonizing you see towards AEW is from old school guys who don't want to see these changes. They like it being it was a creepy old man business, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about this is a lot of this stuff is, and people will argue from the other side, oh, but like, you know, you can't like, you know, it's like, oh, every accusation is like, no, here's the thing, like you want to have a process, you want to have kind of a reasonable, safe environment, you want to have people to have the ability to have this like you would in a healthy work environment. You have to have rules, and you have to have like a process, and you have to have like a working HR department that you don't need to nuke from space.
Yeah,
that like actually listens to the stuff and
HR, you know, to be fair, was an issue in AEW for a while.
I mean, I think, and I'm going to use a Japan example. I think that like if we look at like how probably the principal Japanese Joshi promotions changed by expelling some of the elements that they had that were not necessarily. It is kind of interesting. They got rid of Hatman and Nagawa. Nagawa has like a very bad reputation. I'm not going to get into that. Like Kenny Omega, you talk about this stuff. And they moved to a professional, Taro Okada, who was the guy who was running stage shows to Gucci Road, like up and up, and like somebody who was like, you know, respected in that industry. And it is kind of interesting when you look at the way that's actually played out, which is like their stars now are getting on the talk shows, right? The top names, the Sayas, like, because the professionalism in the industry is leading to more opportunities.
Yes,
it makes it much better for people to, much more likely for people to come in and say, hey, let's do a partnership, right? I think it's not an accident that CMLL, being a lot more professional, is now getting a lot more partnership. And I'm not saying that CMLL was like less professional, but I do think that they've done a good job of like making everything kind of like top level. And they have ups and downs, but that level of professionalism leads to better partnerships. I think it's not an accident that AEW, like, you know, our man Swerve with like Tony, like, you know, going out and meeting with the commissioner of the NFL, because like they feel like AEW is a trustworthy partner. Whereas I would look at the WWE kind of like, do I really want to kind of, and people will, but I mean, like, do I really want to get in business with it? Because I think, and I was reminded that I was wrong at one point about Triple H. I thought Triple H would get fired almost immediately when the Janel Grant story broke, because I felt like the correct move, and I'm coming at it from corporate, is if I'm doing a merger and I get to read this finding and I see that, I have to nuke HR from space. I basically have to clean out the C-suite. And I thought a reasonable kind of corporation would have done that. And like TKO did not, right? They didn't do that. And again, I didn't account for something. Like, I mean, and not to throw stones here, but Nick used to work for Harvey Weinstein. And Ari's not necessarily an angel. So
really? I had no idea. Wow.
Isn't the producer his name is at the end of every episode have
Lee Fitting? Lee Fitting ran ESPN Game Day and was basically head of it while it turned into being the biggest pregame
Yeah,
show. It ended up being the biggest show on TV besides the games they watched, and he got booted from ESPN for sexual harassment
well, I
allegations.
mean, there's a lot of ties. Nick Khan had a lot of ties in ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, there was also the Jamie Horowitz. Was it Horowitz from Fox? He was an executive at WWE for a while, and then it came out a couple years later. He got let go by Fox Sports, where he came to know Nick Khan and CAA, and he was let go from Fox because of sexual harassment allegations, which was much as a massive problem at Fox and in ESPN, and a lot of that seems that culture is really bad in media in general, and very, very bad in the big time sports media.
I mean, I think that I'm getting into dangerous territory here, but that's always what we do because we don't care. But and if you know the story, the backstory with Nick, and you know the backstory with Ari, right? And they don't hide this stuff. They're very high profile agents that helped a lot of people cover up a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there's the ties with I mean, again, they worked with Vince, and the corruption. I did not account for the fact that the corruption in TKO is a historic thing, and they have a pattern of like doing this kind of stuff. So they were kind of like a little bit more inured and really coming at it from like the seedier side of Hollywood. And I'm not going to get into like the whole thing, but like effectively, I underestimated their tolerance for this kind of bullshit, and effectively WWE's always had a tolerance for that. And I mean, if you read the stories about Nancy Argentino and Vince going with Snuka to the guys who were investigating that murder, there's a lot of things that Vince has done. I mean, like things like, I mean, I've made the argument. We know that the Owen Hart thing. Why did they keep going? It was an active crime scene. Why did they not stop the pay-per-view? Like a guy died there. It's an active crime scene. You have to investigate, but you kept going, right? So the pattern of behavior and how they treat people and how they kind of like, they basically treat the stuff they do as something they can just write a check, right? It is kind of, again, I think the more stunning thing to me is that they have not been willing to settle all this stuff, right? Or not tried to settle this more aggressively. That's the part that's been more than them doing that, more than them covering it up. The fact that they haven't settled this stuff is the part that's surprising to me.
That's a great point, because it's like you put together the shareholder suit and some of the other things that are going on, and it's like, they tried to settle the UFC fighter suit, and the judge said, this is such crap. I'm not going to let this go as a settlement. But even when the fighters were just going to take whatever they could get, but at the same time, it's just, I think a lot of it gets in the same reason, people in high profile positions keep doing the same things over and over. They get used to getting away with it. And I think that they see this shareholder suit as like, you know what, I don't want them to have our money, so we're not going to let them have it. And as this thing's gone along, you've seen more and more embarrassing material and potentially criminal material coming out. And
well, I mean, the thing I was explaining to people, when people, and I've been in the room with some of this stuff, which is when you're analyzing liability, right, or you're analyzing possible courses of action, one of the calculations that will come into the amount is if I do this or I do this, how much is it going to cost me? So there's a cost associated with fighting the suit from a PR basis, from a money basis, and there's the cost of trying to settle it, right? And the kind of suit that they're doing with the shareholders is effectively a suit where they said, okay, we're not going to listen. They basically said, we're not going to listen to what the shareholders say, and we're going to make the process close because we're going to direct the process to the buyer that we want. People would say, like, why can't they sell to the buyer they want? Because by being a public company, they have a fiduciary duty to serve the interest of the shareholders. The issue, or what companies do, is when they have a targeted sale like this, right? They say it's going to cost us this much money to pay off the shareholders when they sue us. The shareholders understand that like WWE didn't play ball and like essentially did not serve their best interest, and there's a cost to them. And typically what companies do is they have a number, and whoever is the buyer decides to just write this off, right? And the surprising part about this is, again, like they must know what the number is. They must know what the settlement number is, the shareholders. They just haven't been willing to pay for it. And my thought on this has been like they were going to sell, but like we'll talk about that later. But that may be kind of, I thought they may sell to the Saudis, but that may have problems down the line. So I like my surprise has been like the more you go, the worse it's going to get, because Discovery is not your friend, right? Particularly when you're a company like WWE who has so many skeletons in the closet. So like I still don't understand why they haven't settled this lawsuit. Right, the longer it goes, the more it's going to cost them. Right, I think nothing I've seen has made me think the price is going down on the settlement.
The more it's going to cost them, it's going to cost them monetarily. It's also going to cost them like as in the PR sense, because all this more damaging stuff is going to come out on them.
Well, I mean, I suspect what the if I were the shareholders' lawyers, what I'd be trying to do is I'm trying to establish how much money did WWE leave on the table by taking the TKO offer, right? As opposed to taking one of the other offers on the table, which is I suspect why they want. We were talking about this before. This is what they're trying to subpoena the KKR files. KKR is one of the bidders, and the judge said they have to make these communications public because effectively what you're trying to get is a feel for what the offers were like, so that the attorneys for the stockholders can use that as part of the damages claim. Because since WWE isn't cutting them a check, right, or is not in a hurry to cut them a check, then essentially they're going to use that and use the leverage to try to drive this out and put a number together, right? And again, I keep saying, it's like, I do not understand why they, like, this is why I've thought that, like, the plan for them was to sell. We'll talk about the other indicators, but, like, I've thought for a long time that I think TKO was going to use them, then use them to sell.
But do you think that TKO got WWE at a cost because Vince was desperate to get that? Like just to get like his shares sold. You think that's why like TKO was quick to get it, and like he worked around the shareholders, right? That's why he was able to sell like that.
Well, I mean,
that's the whole lawsuit, right? Because he sold, but like there wasn't it wasn't like the biggest offer that he could get, which is kind of what we were seeing with Paramount and WBD, kind of, right?
My personal theory for this was Vince was going to sell to the Saudis, right? So Vince came in, he was going to sell to the Saudis when he came in. And effectively, he was talked to doing the TKO deal. And it doesn't mean that the Saudis are out, because if you look at who is TKO doing business with, they're doing SUFA with, I forget the name of the fund, but
Turkey.
It is no, they're doing it with the entertainment fund for Saudi. So TKO is working with Saudi and their entertainment arm to do stuff through the SUFA stuff. We could talk about that later.
Was it Sella, I think?
Yeah, I believe so. And essentially, my thought has been that they were basically kind of acting in a way as kind of a holding company here. And eventually, like, I do think that the plan, like the back door was like, yeah, they're going to do the same thing they're doing with like boxing with the WWE.
I got a little bit of breaking news for you, Arturo. Mm-hmm. Cody Rhodes is the new WWE Undisputed Champion.
Oh, are you kidding me?
What a shock! I am so shocked. I'm not shocked at all. I mean, they're going to do the Cody. We can talk about ticket sales because, like, yeah, they're trying to get some sort of interest for that Wrestlemania because, like,
how'd the crowd react?
Yeah, they react. It's a title change. They're going to react to a title change. That it was a reaction. I just saw it on like my timeline, so I didn't like play it with volume on.
Yeah, I was expecting. People have been talking about, like, the question is like whether it's going to be a 3-way at Mania or not. But like, we're getting off topic. Like, the thing about that, we can back at that. But like, the thing I was going to say was effectively now you're in a situation where they're holding the company. It got sold to them. I'm assuming they took less money than some of the other offers because essentially. The person kind of probably pushing Nick and probably Triple H are the guys who wanted this sale. There's I keep citing it. I wish I could find it again. It's a Hollywood Report piece, which when Vince came back was talking about the sale and talks about the different offers. And you can tell it's ghostwritten by Nick because, like, it's like the leaks, like which executive could be leaking this? Because it's like an inside source at WWE, and it goes in to describe all the offers, and it explains that the Endeavor offer, which is the TKO offer, was like, oh, Nick has a relationship with them, and they would keep Triple H as the figurehead, like they do with Dana White with UFC, and it's a great scene. It's like, yeah, basically Nick blowing up blowing smoke off the Endeavor effort's ass. And I always thought that's like kind of like it was kind of telling that they put that out there. That's really what happened. And effectively, like we're now in a spot where like so that's there. I think that like their partnerships, particularly the Saudi Wealth Fund, is for world reasons in trouble, right? Because like we have a lot of news coming out that like there's a lot of
since the last time
like
we talked.
Doc, I have to make a joke. Basically, all the Saudi funding ran into a roadblock.
Yeah, because
it ran into the roadblock because it's the end of the line because they had to kill the line project. It's the joke
road
about
dog the end of the line.
Rope. No, so
Road
essentially,
dog.
like, yeah, so essentially, like the Saudi guys, the Saudi funds, and all the other funds are kind of like they're having issues with the funding, obviously, because of all the bombs and like the Strait of Hormuz being closed, money's not flowing out, and that's going to have knock-on effects. I think that like a lot of the funding that people were counting on for things like SUFA and TKO was counting on for like kind of like the rest of the year is not going to be available. That's going to be a real problem because I've been saying that like TKO is going to have issues with the debt that they're carrying. And it's the funding that they're counting on,
which is around, I think it was $3 billion at the end of the year, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, if the funding they're counting on for all the ventures that they're doing, like Zufa, and they've already signed the checks for this stuff, and like the Saudis are not going to may not be able to like pay for them this stuff because they're cutting back because they don't have cash flows, then it's going to become like really much more critical. If WWE goes into downturn, and there's real signs that they are, then like this service in the debt is going to become like way more critical to them, right? Than like that it's been, right? Because of external pressures, right?
But WWE is doing great. They made $1.4 billion in profit last year. If you ask Eric Bischoff.
I mean, they did, but I mean, I think the trick with this is so effectively they're relying on they have the live event business and they have the TV business, and I think right now we see signs with WrestleMania where like, I mean, the numbers aren't out there, but I've seen the numbers from Give Credit WrestleTix, and effectively they haven't moved any tickets this week, right? And they really haven't moved any tickets since the on sale for WrestleMania, which suggests to me like I'm thinking the only way this happens is people are buying on tickets on resale because they're dropping below face value, right? So like right now, that's one. And the other part is I think the hotels probably bought a bunch of tickets, which they're giving to people who are traveling as comps, which is something that hotels in Vegas do. Which means like to me that like you may be looking at like 30,000 people in this building, which is 65,000.
Because we're looking also, you brought it up on when we last talked on Monday. Was it Monday or Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
What Monday? You brought up the NASCAR 3 tickets like
the
nights of WrestleMania and then,
they're trying to they did for one thing they've cut prices like 33%. They're now doing a thing where like you can buy a 3-way ticket, which is like NASCAR and like the 2 nights in WrestleMania, and they're like, and we're not even getting to like the Raw after Mania like is selling no tickets, that thing like because nobody's staying in town basically, and really, what happens if now you can't do Mania in Saudi in 2027, and now your Saudi partner doesn't have the cash necessarily, possibly, to fund the other ventures that the other venture TKO is doing. Then again, the situation for WWE becomes much more worse. And also, here's the thing: if oil does actually, because I saw some analysts were saying that oil prices are going to rise to like $150 a barrel.
Yes, this week was the largest increase in oil price in history.
Yeah, and really, they're doing a lot to keep this price down. And, if this goes up, then nobody's going to want to travel to like these $200 shows, right?
Because this war has pretty much like shifted the global economy. I think there was the story of like Saudi had to move like where their oil reserve is going, and that's going to be very costly for them, and it's not good. It's not good. All this is not. I mean, war isn't good at all, but like this is not good for the economy. I think what was it? Some board said like this war is basically going to destroy the global economy. I think somebody said that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the Iranian guys said that, but he's not. Again, he's not wrong. I think they, funnily enough, like their spokespeople, like when they've said stuff, it's actually like you look back on it a couple of weeks, like they weren't wrong. I was gonna say one interesting thing. I want to take a victory lap on this, DJ, which is, do you remember when I said the Paramount offer, the financials for Paramount, the dog don't hunt, right?
Yes.
And you know what happened within 24 hours of me saying that?
I believe I do know what you're talking about. I want to hear you say it.
The debt
You
rating.
yes.
The debt rating got reduced to junk. Which if people don't know this basically means that essentially that stock is not eligible for like a lot of the funds that like buy this stuff to drive this stuff. It's basically going out and saying like, yeah, don't buy this, right? Which essentially is the analyst saying like, yeah, this is not a good investment. And this again, this does not account for
when Zaslav came out as like that news came out of him selling like 115 whatever of his stock. People were saying, "Oh no, that's because WBD's dead." So of course he did that because he killed him already. But like, no, he's selling it at the highest price it's gonna get right now, because you already know where the market's going, especially like when the whole Iran stuff happened. Like it's happening right now and it's getting worse. So he did the smartest thing he could do.
Yeah, essentially like this, like Zaslav selling $150 million of stock tells me that the idea that the call is coming from inside the house, which I highlighted, that I don't think the people in WWD themselves want this merger to work. I think this merger is going to fail. And here's the other question I asked today on Twitter, and I was hoping people could back me on this, which is, have people asked how the war is affecting the Paramount financing, right? Because there's this article today, it was out, like I think New Yorker put this out about Ellison and like the $111 billion deal. But there's stories out there that he was doing this with a lot of like Saudi and wealth fund money from the different Middle East economies. And again, if money's tight and there's no money, where's the money coming from to like finance this stuff, right?
Well, they didn't finance. So the original, I think it was the 8th or 9th deal they proposed. They had 3 Middle Eastern funds. It was Qatar, the Saudis, the Public Investment Fund, and they also had UAE. Who all are coincidentally getting attacked by Iran right now, because they're our allies, and they're sending drones over there and hitting them as well as Kuwait. But the Saudi fund wasn't even doing that well before the war. But this is the thing that's concerning, is in foreign policy circles, and this was a story reported by the Wall Street Journal today, and that is the Iranian leadership, basically what their goal is to survive this thing. They're calling it kind of I don't know how you would put this in foreign policy or military terms, but basically their whole goal is just to weather this thing and survive it. And it's risky. It's risky, but at the same time, it also puts into question, what are they willing to do to survive it? And that's where you get into concerns, because you got Saudi over there, you have Qatar, you have all these oil giants over there, and as you mentioned, this could be, people have been discussing, and another interesting aspect is Russia's been providing intelligence on U.S. military strikes and information like that to the Iranians. So much for our. So much for that helpfulness we're supposed to get from the friendly Trump-Putin relationship. But it's when you're hearing stuff like that, it's like, okay, they're in for this for the long haul, and they're willing to bleed everyone, including themselves, out.
And talking about Ellison's bleeding themselves out, there is that big news.
So
about
if they're
Oracle
already, so if the
jobs.
so if the Saudis are already having investment issues, if they're already having return problems after the EA purchase, what's this going to mean? Because now we're already talking, we're hearing Hexeth now saying, okay, instead of a couple of weeks, it looks like 8 weeks, which is, this is how every Middle East incursion starts, right? Are
you familiar with what is it? I forget the name. It's Millennium, the Millennium exercise they did when they ran the Iran war game. Are you familiar with that story? Essentially, I think it's called Millennium Force. I forget the name exactly, but what they did was they did Blue Force is the Allies, Red Force was the stand-in for Iran, Iraq, and it was being run by this Marine general, right? This is around the time of Bush, right? So they did this exercise, and
these are really smart people, by the way, doing this.
The Marine general who was playing the Red, who was playing Iran, beat the crap out of the Allied forces. He beat them so bad that they had to change the rules multiple times to the point where they said, "Look, you can't keep winning." They literally changed the rules so he could not win because because essentially like he kept sinking carriers and he kept like because he was like he essentially was doing the kind of like, yeah, I'm just gonna bleed you, right? Because it becomes a situation where like I can with asymmetric warfare make this so costly for you, right?
Yeah.
That like you and again you people if not people are not aware about how
And this is
Iran is like a straight up mountain basically from the coast. Like it's really kind of it's ideal for this kind of thing, right? And effectively the whole point of this is that you're in a situation where like I think people may have lied to kind of the allied commanders and like given the impression that like the Iranians were going to fold really quickly, and that's really not what's happening. Particularly now that they've killed all the people who were. See, the thing of the secret they don't tell you is the people that they killed were the conciliatory guys, right?
The guys who are going to be the replacements.
The guys who basically like the way they and might get me into trouble, but like the Ayatollah that they killed was effectively the way they killed him was he was coming out to sign a treaty, right? He was trying to get a settled peace, and he kept going for these settled pieces, and they kept killing, like the U.S. kept killing the people who were coming to sign treaties under flag of truce, which is like really shitty behavior, but fine. And they did that, and now the people who were in there are the people who were like, you've killed all the people who were like trying to get like deals done. So why would the other people come to the table? And I think that the Gulf states were all pressing the U.S. to give them a settlement offer, or like I think Tucker Carlson came out and said that he was talking to Trump and saying, "Look, just claim victory, right?" And like, which is weird when he's like the voice of reason. He has his own reasons, whatever. I'm not going to get into that, but he's coming out and saying that, and because they kind of know that like now when they're making these offers, why would the Iranians like if every time you've offered something, you've got out and killed the people who come to sign it?
Yeah.
Why would they take your offer now? So now they're just going to sit there and go like, yeah, the best thing we can do is we're going to basically hurt you economically. We're going to destroy expensive equipment, and we're going to make this like really bad for you economically. And I think honestly, like I think the take or the strategy is like, let's get to the midterms, right? Because they probably kind of know that like the way like economically, like people who haven't been paying attention, every election has been going way against us. And here's the thing, like this war is not polling well, right? And people really do not like this, and it's not going to get better economically. And inflation and high gas prices and like not being able to travel, all these things, right, affect like wrestling, right? So we're talking about like, hey, you have debt service, you have to run these shows, and you're trying to run like the Middle East next year. You're getting money from the Saudi shows. It becomes a real problem, and you're doing partnerships with like Saudi for like money for super boxing, or like your Paramount where you're getting this money from like the wealth funds. If that money dries up because, they can't like, I think who was it? They're shutting down production of oil because they don't have any place to put it, right? Because they can't get it out, right?
Yeah, that was in Reuters. Reuters was reporting that.
Which is bad news.
Yeah, that's because like if they don't have those Saudi shows, like even this year, if they don't have the rest of those Saudi shows on the book, it's gonna look really bad for them for WWE this year. Not having
that's a good chunk of their. If you take out, I mean, how much are they getting per Saudi show?
Last time I looked, it was like 25. I think it was 25 million per show.
So you take it. I mean, that goes towards
higher. I mean,
that goes a long way towards your gross profit of 1.4 billion a year. If you're taking the Saudi stuff away, I mean, obviously they got through the Rumble. That's the big one, but you're looking. We're in March. You're looking at 3/4 of the year you've yet to, get the rest.
I'm very bullish on the Paramount deal not happening. Right, I just feel like from what we know, and I expect this is going to get worse before it gets better. I expect that like the people who are relying on this kind of Saudi wealth, which are, hey man, like all these investment funds are all linked to this stuff. Like we have a run-in.
Hey Garrett.
Hey, Garrett.
We have Garrett of Fight Game Media and of the Wrestling Observer Radio. Welcome, Garrett.
What's up, guys?
I was going on a diatribe. I am basically saying that like the fact that like the Saudi wealth funds and the wealth funds in the Middle East are all in trouble is going to be problems for both the Paramount deal and WWE and TKO, because they're deeply embedded in the Saudi money through the Saudi shows, but also the fact that, like, you know, if you look, TKO is working on the Sufa stuff with the Saudi entertainment arm. So there's a lot of money that's out there in play that's going to directly impact a lot of the stuff that we're talking about recently, right? It's going to get rough. And also, if you're running shows in the U.S., like if the oil barrel price goes to $150 a barrel, which they're talking about, that's going to make that WrestleMania show even worse in terms of like people flying out and like going to that show.
I mean, it's already hard enough to drive over there as it is.
I mean, I've made the point that I suspect that if you wanted to see WrestleMania and you're in Vegas for that weekend, you will be able to get tickets for free on the Strip, right? And like that's people like maybe have pushed back on it, but like I mean, like there's like that's kind of the way it goes in Vegas, and I mean, every number I see is they're not moving any tickets for the show. It's kind of like shocking from like drop. They haven't moved anything, and that's just. I mean, we were talking at one point about like Roman Reigns and his upcoming free agency, which he talked about in Variety. Or wait, no, that was Vanity Fair. Vanity Fair interview UFC where he said like his contract was coming up for after Mania, and if this is the run to prove that he's a draw and make TKO pay him, ooh, that's not good. And obviously, I don't think he's solely at fault here, but like he's not moving the needle here, guys. And
I think that's why they moved to Orton and Cody, but Orton's not really
like that's the question.
Draw.
Wait, who's going? But that's a question. Who's working Sunday? Is Roman working Sunday or Cody working Sunday?
It's got to be Roman.
You think? They had Roman out there for a month, and like they haven't. When I say they haven't moved any tickets, effectively, I think like the number from WrestleTix was like maybe like 500 tickets. Like 1,000 since like he was announced at Rumble. That's like a month down the line. That's kind of bad. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it may become a story where like they may kind of like, you know, maybe Cody kind of like makes a move because again, if they're not moving any tickets, right? Are they going to leave him out there as like the main event? And I understand the whole thing, but like it's not drawing. I mean, how desperate are they drawing? Go ahead.
You guys are aware of the SmackDown spoilers, right?
Yes, we were aware.
Cody's the world champion.
Yeah.
So the way that they did that, I think it actually is going to work against Cody. I think there is I think Cody even realizes this, that you know those people are sick of him in that role, and you know it's the same. It's kind of the same story of. You know, he's either chasing the championship or he's winning the championship or he is the champion. Like you can't really, you know, you can't breathe in as a WWE fan without Cody kind of being in that same role. And it's really not his fault, right? He's the chosen one, but we saw it happen with other guys like John Cena, and that
Roman.
Caused the fan base to kind of pivot on Cena. And I think Cody is much smarter at his age than John Cena was when this stuff was happening to him, and even Roman in the early years. And I sort of wonder if this is the kind of the last babyface run by Cody until he does turn heel, because I think he realizes that there's not a lot of meat left on the bone, at least right now. He's just overexposed like hell to that audience. And I kind of think that he's going to get booed like a heel in that match against Randy Orton.
It's Randy Orton, Garrett. They're going to cheer Randy Orton no matter what.
But let's look at Randy Orton's WrestleMania resume. It's not great.
It is not. By the way,
No.
Garrett, I just want to say, anytime I can reunite with my wrestling repotters partner, I am thrilled to do it. Yeah, that was a glorious one episode run, and it was a lot of fun when we got to do it. But anyway, thanks for being on the show. Really, it's nice hearing your voice.
We could always run it back. It doesn't have to be a weekly thing. We could run it back at any point in time.
There we go. We'll run it back. We'll do the whole 80s deal. I'll even get my Dick Shapp looking trousers and suit on and start name dropping people. You know, I was with the King of Dubai last week, and he was asking me why the Cubs waved, why they waved as, oil can Boyd and whatever. But anyway, so did you watch SmackDown? Were you able to like see how the crowd reacted to when Cody won the title? What was it like?
It's still. I'm on the West Coast, so it's still.
Oh, so okay. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm used. To, I'm on the East. I have that East Coast bias where I think everything happens in our time. But
Well, you can. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you used to be able to like sneak it in and basically like watch it anyway through the feed. If I remember correctly, so you
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
I miss
mean-
those days.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like, go ahead.
I think I could have if I watched it through the Fox app, I could probably watch it live, but I can't watch any wrestling live these days. I can't sit through all of those commercials. It is like so bad.
Oh.
I mean, I
like-
get you. I get you. Like speeding through is like it can be really good. I was gonna say that like the thing about this is like I'm the OG hater on the Hall of Fame case for Roman and for Randy, and like so many of my agendas are being served by this, and like that's just like no, I'm being facetious, but like it's a really kind of difficult time I think to draw. Right? It is kind of funny that like I was pointing out like people were talking about like the Chicago House. For Elimination Chamber, that was actually like a relative to everything else that's going on. That's a really good house. Like, given the price of the tickets, given the market and the pricing for travel, that was pretty good, right? Like, I think it's extremely high gate, and it's not being reflected to everything else down the line. If you're looking at any numbers,
Yeah,
and that's got to be like in a very interesting kind of situation in-house, because I know the bunch of contracts. Like the other story that's out there is, so when Vince was like about 5 years ago, Vince was like signing a bunch of contracts before. There's a bunch of 5 year deals that got signed that are going to expire this summer, and everything we hear from people is that people are getting lowballed by WWE offers, right? So I feel like we are definitely past the high point on wrestler salaries for this era. And I think that's going to come to fruition. And I do think that, like, I've talked about the Roman thing. I think that, like, the Roman, like, contract is going to be, like, a really interesting story, because if people aren't realizing, but TKO, when they have a guy like this, if they don't think he's a draw, they're not going to pay him, right? Go look at the history of TKO and how they deal with their top fighters, right? Yeah. And if this was a test, because they are paying, like, the thing with Roman is they are, every time Roman shows up on TV, they have to cut a check for him right now. Because I've supposedly read the story that essentially, like, his contract has a series of appearances, and Vince burned through all of them, like, early, right? So essentially now, when they bring him on TV, they have to pay him. When he's coming on the Rumble, he has to get paid over his contract. So if they're bringing him in, right, they're bringing him in at cost, but really, I suspect they're trying to see, hey, should we pay him, right? Show me if this is moving. And again, I think situations external to Roman are driving this, but also he's not moving any tickets, right? So nothing is moving. And it may
show
be
me the money.
Like, it may be they price themselves out of the market, a bunch of other things going on. But again, ultimately, they're going to go, well, we put you on TV and we gave you this showcase and we gave you the biggest match possible as a singles. I think I've said this. This is the first Roman Reigns singles match since he lost to Cody in a pay-per-view, right? And it doesn't look like that's something that the crowd is demanding, right?
This is
so
also kind of a rematch from last year with CM Punk without Seth in there. So it's also like we sort of seen it.
Well, but it's the first single. You have not gotten a Roman Reigns singles main event since he lost to Cody. So there should be a demand for it. If he's a draw, the crowd should want it, right? Sure. And you and I have talked about, I don't know if we mentioned this online, but it does seem like the Anoa'i family has been somewhat like down cycled on WWE, which is kind of also very interesting.
Fatu's not even involved in the world title program right now. It's kind of weird.
They got into the Elimination Chamber, they got jumped and got kicked out. That was very strange.
What say you, Garrett?
I think if TKO looks at Roman Reigns and says, currently, right now, this minute, are you a draw or are you not a draw? This is a bad way to look at him, because he could say, well, I'm probably the biggest reason why you guys bought the company. The storyline that I was involved in, which made everything hot. Like, this is why you guys wanted the thing. And I think looking at this scenario as is he going to drive tickets at WrestleMania when tickets are more expensive than they've ever been? If they want to create that narrative that nobody is a draw, they can create that narrative because the tickets are out of control. But if they want to look with a little bit of foresight, all you got to do is look at what John Cena did last year, because the creative, if we're being honest, was just as subpar last year, or average. I would call it average, because it's much better than it was over many years of the last 25 years. It's just kind of boring.
So you don't think that was the greatest heel turn of all time?
Who?
The Cena turn.
Do I think that was the greatest heel turn of all time?
But he's feeding into the, he's joking about the the crazy reaction. But
okay, but I was on air, one of the first people to shit on it with Meltzer.
No, I'm just kind of like I'm feeding into that, but like keep going.
No, but that's how I saw it in the present time. When it happened, I was on record as saying this is a really bad idea because they're not going to have a follow-up, and they didn't. But my point is look at what happened last year with John Cena. He drew so many great houses because it was this final run. And so if you are going to basically tell Roman goodbye because, we're not going to pay you X, Y, and Z, then what you're doing also is you are eliminating that retirement period for him. You're eliminating the opportunity to do stuff like that for him and a lot of these guys, right? Because we all know that their roster is super old right now.
Yeah,
I mean, here's the thing. I would agree with you if I was TKO, but like given the track record of TKO with their top guys in UFC, this is why I keep bringing this up, because this would not be the first time the TKO.
There's one problem with your analogy, is that there's no competitor to UFC.
That is fair. But they don't treat, like, sometimes internally they don't treat.
I agree with you to that extent. I completely agree with you.
I suspect, like, this is what I've kind of gamed out, is I suspect that, like, Roman is not going to like the offer that TKO comes at him with, because I suspect TKO is going to try to give him a haircut.
Okay, but you know who's going to get it done for Roman.
Who's going to get it done for Roman?
So there's somebody on the board of directors who probably is going to make sure that he's happy.
Yes, that is true. But what happens if he gets an offer, right? I suspect that, like, if I were TKO, I would make him an offer, right? Even if to just cause trouble, right? And I would still think that, like, I suspect.
You mean if AEW were to make an offer?
You're talking about T-Con-O, not TKO.
T-Con making an offer, yes.
Yeah.
And I suspect what I'm suspecting is essentially what I'm trying to call, like, force styles. Like, I don't think this process is going to be clean. And I don't think anything that's happened in the last 3 or 4 months has shaken me off that, because this has really not gone well as a proving down run to show that you're worth the money, right? So I do believe there's going to be pressure to cut this salary or come to a lower number. What happens then? Well, we don't know, but I do think it's going to be contentious. And he's not the only person coming up on this time. Like, we know the stories from, like, Ciampa, and I think Ciampa's come out and said that, like, they lowballed him, right? We know supposedly Finley
got an NXT.
Oh, we've heard. Yeah, supposedly he also did not, like, it was a lower offer too. So, like, essentially that's out there that they're not doing that. So I suspect there's going to be some real interesting things. If TKO has this debt to service, they have issues with the partner money coming in, and there are issues with, like, live events, because nobody's going to want to travel if oil's $150 a barrel, right? So if all that is kind of coming into
I just realized that. Oh shit. Going to Vegas is going to be very bad for SoCal locals.
Yes. So essentially, it becomes a much more interesting situation. And again, my feeling has always been with this: it's like, when you go into these, when you become a company that gets bought out, like WWE did with TKO, and you go into a situation where you get a leverage buyout, the company absorbs this debt, right? So WWE has been very smart for a long time, because they built their business model around they were not subject to the vagaries of the market. So when the business goes up and the business go down, if your revenue is tied to the Saudi money and the TV money, then you're not dependent on the live event business, which means when business goes down, you're still seeing revenue, right? So you can still operate. You're not subject to the whims of the public, which can be good and bad because it means you're booked back. But now, this is the first time we're going to go into a down cycle possibly for the business where you have a debt to service, right? And that becomes like you're going to have this debt pressure and this salary pressure that you really did not have the last time we were on a down cycle, which I'd probably say was 2019. I'd probably point and say that, like in my head, I think last down cycle for WWE, and I see Seth Rollins in like red light, and that's the last down cycle for WWE in my head. And I think that's kind of where we are like right now, and it's going to be really interesting how they kind of negotiate this like next 12-month period. We kind of knew that it was coming like after Cena, and it's going to be really interesting how this goes with this new reality for them.
I got a question for Garrett here, and I want to know if you think, one, do you think they're on the downturn? I don't, just because I want to see how you view this, and if it is, how much of a downturn it is, and do you think it is so much creative, or do you think it's so much because their main event is really not changed much at all for a very long time?
3 years.
I think they are, for the hardcore wrestling fan, which includes a very loud minority of AEW fans. Their creative is very easy to pick on right now. But like I said, if you've been a longtime WWE fan, let's go back 15 years. Let's go back 10 years. The creative today is head and shoulders above what it was when Vince McMahon was there. So let's keep that in perspective. I think
Bars in hell, brother.
The big thing with Triple H and company is more so their mentality than anything else. It is the hubris and the arrogance from last year's WrestleMania is why I'm not going this year. Like I was like, okay, like it was cool. Like there were lots of events to go to. I went to I went to hang out with Andreas Hale and a bunch of people. That was a blast. But the actual WWE events, and they were running these dudes ragged. Jey Uso wins the title, and then that brother was shipped off to like 3 or 4 different events, and he didn't even get to sleep. Like it was insane. So it's just this idea that they're untouchable and their business is untouchable. And the money, I think Arturo said it earlier, the money is so consistent and it's there that a lot of these business things that we sort of look at as reasons for success or failure, they're just not there anymore. Like, they don't have to run pay-per-views. Their money is already guaranteed. Netflix thing is guaranteed. All they're working for is whatever that next deal is when it comes up.
That's a great point. I think
this is the conversation we've been having here, because like we've been having a conversation where it's a business to business revenue thing that they moved to, but the WWE has burned a lot of their TV partners. Where like it's been a track record where they're like they have the deal with TV partner and the TV partner does not re-up. And I think this the ESPN deal. The thing to keep in mind is ESPN essentially kind of absorbed the pay-per-view side of it, right, in a way. And it has been a point of contention that's been brought up. And I do think it's like now, as I said, like you've moved to a world where like you're not isolated. You need to make revenue on a month-to-month basis. And I think that's where
Shapiro on the call did say that ESPN Unlimited is sort of like detrimental for people. There's a price point for people to come in and purchase these PLEs, right? That's what he said on that.
Yeah, call. I mean, like I said it at the time, and I said that like people call me crazy because ESPN is such a great partner. I said, like having the boom period was tied heavily to having WWE available on Peacock. Peacock was a great
yes.
They made
Gary,
this show.
You said that Peacock has way more subscribers than Paramount, right? I think
not way.
More.
Peacock historically has been the lowest subscribed to streaming of the big streamers because they are US only. So they were hovering around like 20 million subscribers forever, and I think because of the Olympics and some other things, they're now in like around 40. I was just surprised to see Paramount under 40 in the US. They have like 35 million subscribers in the US, 36, something like that. So I was just surprised because I just had thought that Peacock was the lowest
in
end.
the US.
It was for a long time, but you got to remember 2024 Paramount lost to Yellowstone. And while they still have some NFL content and things like that, Yellowstone was something that, I mean, reruns of Yellowstone after NFL on CBS or after 60 Minutes on Sundays was drawing like 10 million viewers on CBS. This reruns stuff that was like 2 or 3 years old. Like I think they were running the series from the start. So that kind of plays into the Paramount Peacock numbers. But
Sheridan's going to Universal in a couple of years.
And it's Comcast, and they got him for some projects right now, but nothing that's going to help them. But I also think that Paramount, it's going to be interesting because of the thing is too. I think people need to understand when you're looking at all this stuff is that we don't know where the media business is going. No. Even by the time, I mean, the media business is going to change at least 2 times by the time the Paramount, if the Paramount Warner Brothers deal if it finishes. I doubt that it gets to the finish line. I think there's great arguments why it could, but I also think there's a ton of, the obstacles it faces are huge, especially with the war going on right now. But the ESPN deal, I think with WWE, I think what really hurt them with this so far is one, that it was a startup app. It was a brand new app. It did not have a subscriber base. 2, ESPN does really not know how to do much with actual WWE content. They can bring on people to interview just fine. They can talk about it on SportsCenter when Coachman was on there just fine. Dealing with it's a little bit harder. CM Punk at a college football game just doesn't seem to really fit. And I think the other issue was they thought that, ESPN's always, their whole goal with this is to use it as to make up for carriage fees. So they want YouTube TV, they want other places to be able to bounce in and say, okay, we'll pick up the cost of ESPN Unlimited so our viewers can get it. And we'll just throw it on like a carriage fee like we would before. But because the providers are losing subscribers and money, and they basically, they do not want to get back to the old carriage fee model. They're meeting a ton of resistance. Like the YouTube TV deal, the question I get asked the most is, when are we going to get the app so I can watch WWE pay-per-views? And I think you add that on top of just how the Netflix deal, how much more expensive it is now to watch the product. I think that's led to a lot of fan consternation. And I think it's one reason why the WWE stuff's not getting watched. I think all that plays into it, plus the fact that, that they're just not getting as many people.
You know what's really bad I think no one mentioned this, but you know what probably is really bad for the WWE deal with ESPN? The MLB deal with ESPN.
Oh, that, yeah.
All the regional sports network dying and like MLB going on the app and essentially like forcing people that want to do the passes to go through the app was a big, huge win for the ESPN app, to the point where I don't think they need. The reason that they got WWE has been superseded by like all the regional like MLB networks dying. And I think the other problem for this is effectively, I think ESPN like doesn't like it and hasn't really done anything to promote it, to the point where like it's kind of funny. I don't know if you've noticed, but like Disney Plus is promoting it more than ESPN is, right? If you go to the Disney Plus, there is you can find the WWE pay-per-views showing up once they show it. Yeah, on demand, but no. If you go to Disney Plus, once they show them on TV, which is what happened with the Royal Rumble, that you can see them on ESPN Plus. Sorry, on Disney Plus, right? So Disney, it does seem like there is friction between what Disney wants to do and ESPN wants to do with this. So it is not a good marriage so far. And I think that the whole kind of discussion around WrestleMania is not helping. I've been saying from the start that when they did this, right, I always felt like really what happened was that NBC basically wanted to get out of the NBC wanted out of the contract, and they needed a partner. And I think ESPN stepped up to the deal. So I think it was more cancellation than anything else because of the way they cancel all this stuff. And I think the reasons Comcast wanted out is because they were launching their own thing. I think like we've talked about this here before, where the initial plan really was Comcast was going to merge with WB, right? And that was the initial merger plan. And then
that's definitely what Zaslav and
yes,
John, the board chairman. That's definitely what they had in mind. They were Comcast people, but then the money got out of control.
What I'm going to say is like when they do this kind of deal, because I'm an XGE guy. I used to work for General Electric, like Zaslav, so I know how they operate this kind of deal. You would do what they call a due diligence. I've mentioned this process before, where like we're going to do a merger and we're going to start like you're going to be like shadow executives who are like working towards this deal. So I suspect, given how late in the game it was and some of the stuff that were going on, I suspect when this happened, like Comcast and WB were already working on kind of the shadow and the plan. And again, if you want to see some of the fingerprints on this, like this talk about like when they split off the USA and that, like how they were going to split off the linear work.
Versant.
Versant, and supposedly Versant was going to like merge with TNT Sports and that. So that was all. There's stories out there about like there were plans in place. So when that didn't happen, right? Then you get like ESPN comes in and does this like quickie marriage offer. Like Khan, if you know the story of Nick Khan has a lot of contacts in ESPN. A lot of guys he knows used to work back in the days. I think he's mentioned in the ESPN oral history. It's been a while since I read it, but like, but he's there. So he's somebody who has those contacts, and he still has those contacts in business. So I think he and Ari kind of made this deal happen. And BJ's mentioned the carrot trees. That's what they were looking for. And the reason I think this came together very last minute and nobody had any idea is I keep asking, it's like, do you know what happens the weekend of WrestleMania, Garrett?
Do I know what happens?
What is the big sports property that is going to go directly against WrestleMania? Game 1 of the NBA playoffs. Who may be playing his last Game 1 in the NBA playoffs this year?
Are you talking about LeBron?
LeBron James. And I've jokingly said that if Jesus came back that week, ESPN would only ask him, ESPN would go up to Jesus and go, since you're the son of a famous person, what do you think of the possibility of LeBron and Bronny James having a game together? Last Game 1 of the playoffs. What is your opinion?
Oh, Bronny is not getting into that game.
No, God,
no way.
I hope he doesn't. My God, I don't want him there.
But you know what I mean? Like, if they really kind of planned this ahead, they would never have put WrestleMania that week, right?
No, okay, I see what you're saying. Now I'm going to zag on this ESPN thing, and here's why. ESPN, they are putting this app out the way that they did. They are basically trying not to ruin their relationships with these cable companies because you've seen it in the past. Where when Peacock and Paramount and all of these streamers launched, what they did is they also put their live stream channels on the streaming app. And so the cable companies were like, well, you know, what the hell? Like, why would anyone need to go through us now if they can just buy the app, your app for $10 a month? Or, you know, in some cases it was even cheaper if you guys remember the very beginning.
Yes.
And then you can show all of these shows that, you know, we have subscribers for. Like, you're actually hurting our business. And so what happened is that all of these companies have been making deals with the streamers going like, okay, if you guys want to do that, you are going to give us the commercial version of your app, and we're going to give it to our subscribers for free. So that's where this ESPN thing comes from, where people want to get the app for free. Like, that's kind of the history behind it. And so, but ESPN, they're like, you know what? Like, we make so much money in cable still, even though the subscribers are way down, and they're going to keep going down. They're like, we don't want to upset that apple cart because we can try and do both at the same time. Now, they made the deal with Xfinity. I've had it from day one because I'm a Hulu person, and they're in the same, you know, they're in the same company. And so if you're WWE, you're like, can you guys hurry up and make all of these deals so everybody can have it, because this is kind of a pain in the ass for our product. And I'm sure when ESPN was selling them on the idea of coming on the app, Nick Khan, who is as savvy as anybody else, was probably like, okay, but how are we going to get this in the hands of people who already have your channel? And so I'm sure that they had this conversation of, you know what, all these deals are coming up, we'll make it happen, blah, 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 blah. And so WWE is actually having to be patient because remember, now here's the thing that everyone forgets. The deal was supposed to start this month or next month originally, right?
Yeah, but Peacock, but Comcast wanted out, which is why I say that Comcast there's more Comcast.
Okay,
said,
if that is true, that Comcast wanted to end that contract early, that is different from what WWE said. Because do you remember what WWE said?
Yes, and the reason I've called bullshit on that is because what I just mentioned, what we know of the story of Comcast and WWE kind of like working through the logistics of a possible merger and how they were splitting off Versant. Like the other part is like so basically Peacock split off Versant, which is the one that has a contract with that. So as part of that split off, which they were already going to do in the late part of like last year, you know, who is going to pay for that WWE contract, which is wind up like the SmackDown contract is not with Comcast, it's with Versant, which is the new company that split off. So I suspect that part of the moving pieces was getting out of this. Like, yeah, we don't want this on our books, right? And that's why, like, again, there are signals on this. So, like I've said this, like there is no WWE vertical on the ESPN app. When they did a commercial for the ESPN app, right? Who was the commercial? If you've ever seen it, is John Cena, right? WWE is not mentioned in the commercial of the things that are going to be on the ESPN, of the new ESPN app. If you go to the vertical on the ESPN page, WWE is under other sports. It is the last thing listed, and it took them like 5 weeks to like get it listed outside of like they had a little. You could go through, find the other sports, and they had like the dog surfing stuff, and that's where WWE was. And to this day, like the vertical on Disney Plus is better than the one that's like currently on the ESPN app. The other part, and this is the part that like I highlight, is so the way I have ESPN, I've always had the ESPN Plus, which lets me watch the games. Like if their NBA's on, I was watching Jason Tatum come back today on my ESPN app on my computer. I don't have a Limited, which is the app that has WWE, and I'm not going to pay for it because like my cable company would offer it to me, but I would have to pay up to get the extra service. So now what I suspect is going to happen is down the line, the plan for ESPN is they're going to upcharge for this. So they're going to give it to you now, but the same thing Peacock did, which is they gave it to you for free, but the plan is if they're going to upcharge you for this, which is what they did for Peacock, right? So they may have lied to WWE and said like, oh, it's going to be free, but yeah, it's not going to be free for long. That's not the way this is going to play out, right? But I mean, that's fine. Everything points to this not being a well thought out process. Up to like Stephanie McMahon telling people to like get a VPN to watch it on Netflix. Which, funnily enough, like we did the analysis on it, it was hilarious. Like the numbers for all the pay-per-views.
Their international numbers
we
went
looked
up.
at the international numbers in Canada and Mexico, and they were significantly higher for the recent pay-per-views on Netflix. They do I forget the name, Voodoo. So you can actually go look, and you can see that the numbers jumped on like regions in like for the Mexico region and the Canada region, which suggests that people did actually like watch it on VPN on that, which is kind of like this really weird relationship. I think I always felt like this ESPN relationship was going to be like fractious, and we really have not gotten to Mania, and I did not expect the Mania numbers to be like they are. And I'm referring to the WrestleTix number where like really from drop, I think they dropped to 35,000, and those numbers really, any motion has been effectively a rounding error from them.
Yeah, but that number has nothing to do with ESPN. It has everything to do with the price of tickets.
Well, I mean, again, the issue is that like if the product doesn't look good and it doesn't, like perception is reality. If the product doesn't feel hot and they're not moving that, and they don't need them because they now have the MLB thing, right?
Okay,
and
but they only have 6 teams in the MLB.
I know, but like you know what I'm saying. Like the point I'm saying is like there is a very real risk on this deal that like things can go sour. Now we don't know this, but I'm just like from the noise that people are making within both companies, I kind of go like, there's some real risk here, right? And it's very interesting.
I think the thing is, I know about the deal with ESPN and WWE is this was done at a very, very, very high level. This was not done. This was something that was done, between Ari and maybe Bob Iger, It's just something that was done at the Disney level.
My favorite Bob Iger trivia, by the way.
What's that?
I've mentioned this on Wrestling Observer Radio a couple times. So you guys remember Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how that was like the juggernaut of all TV shows?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well,
It basically created reality TV.
You guys remember what killed Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
SmackDown?
No, they ran it every day.
Oh, yeah. 5 days a week.
Yeah, they ran it
Sometimes.
every day. And you know whose decision that was to run it every day?
Bob Iger.
It was Bob Iger's decision.
Bob Iger. Because you can never go down. You're always going to have infinity gains.
Line go up, baby.
Speaking of the line.
Oh, the line. We're going to get back on this? Okay.
Roadblock into the line.
Roadblock in the...
Well, you know...
Garrett, for context, the line is the big boondoggle project the Saudis are doing that basically officially canceled, I think, a couple days ago, basically. So we're kind of talking about that.
That Saudi fund money doesn't look too good. Right?
It was funny because the full story was they were canceling the project and they were turning it into service for AI, which, of course, that's fun. Anyway,
speaking of TKO and getting involved in stuff, we have seen a reform. They're going to reformat the Ali Act, which
super boxing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want their own championships.
Yeah. What's your guys' take on this? Because like the Ali Act was so that boxers could know how much they're being paid and if they're going to get ripped off, and then all the other stuff. Like, why would you want to reconfigure this?
Because the Saudis and TKO want in, right? They want to be able to bypass the ruling bodies and be able to set up their own thing. So effectively, they want to open up and get rid of some of the regulations to do that, so they can underpay fighters. That's kind of the.
That's the UFC business model. Yes, underpaying fighters.
Yeah, which again,
Which the Guardian says is about 15-18% of the UFC labor overheads, 15 to 18%. That's probably way above the actual number.
To give people an idea, so they know this. Like, I'm a big CBA guy. I've written a lot of stuff about the NBA CBA, the NFL CBA, the MLB CBA.
What at the WNBA CBA? That's what I'm interested in.
Well, I actually did an analysis.
Valkyries, baby.
Let me explain. I actually did an analysis on how much they were being paid. That the athletes for the WNBA were getting paid. They were basically within 3 days of the WNBA season, they were paying off all the payrolls. So 3 games of the WNBA season was paying off the payroll. And I shared it with my mentor, who basically consults with the WNBA teams, and I'm pretty sure he shared it with the players. My mentor, Dave Berry, shout out, wages wins. So I actually do like, I'm weirdly involved in some of this stuff. It's like some of the stuff, awesome. I've written stuff for I've done analysis for the old Bannon case, if you're familiar with that too.
Yeah, and, the EA Sports.
The sports, which is led. We never thought that athletes get paid in our lifetime. But the point I was going to make is, typically, U.S. sports league the big sports leagues pay about 50% of revenue. It's like I forget exact. I think it's 50.1 is the revenue, or 49.9 for the NBA. Similar for MLB, similar for NFL, and I forget what the hockey number is. And that's kind of like the WNBA guy. Athletes are now basically saying, hey, you should pay us now that you're making money. You should pay us more, right? And that's kind of like the discussion. UFC pays peanuts compared to that. Like if you go to professional soccer in Europe, it's more like 66-67%, right? In terms of how much money goes to the athletes, right? So they're more capitalistic than even us. And I think WWE is last time I worked this out was 8%, right? To give people an idea, and I said that at the time. Effectively, by not unionizing, wrestlers have given up literally billions of dollars over time, right? So because if you were kind of in that similar space and you had that, then you would have, never mind the benefits, but you'd have access to a lot more money. Now the thing with the SUFA stuff is they're trying to get around the regulation and get to a point where the Saudi money can come in and pour in, and they basically they'll overpay fighters to start to sign them, which is what they tried to do with soccer and tried to do with golf and live golf, if you're familiar. and then try to make themselves like kind of the new league. Although it's interesting, the Live Golf just died. Effectively, Libre was going back on tour, and some of that like hasn't like worked. And I do think that the SUFA stuff may be in real trouble. There's a story that broke that USA Boxing basically took their support back for the act. And I was joking with Doc that maybe some of the checks didn't clear last week.
Yeah. Because like Yuzufa signed Connor Ben, and they tried to sign
the UK.
Patapia, and I think it came out today that I can't say his last name, Alpatia, whatever. He got stripped of his IBF title for not following the rules. It's going to be very interesting.
One thing I want to know is the proposed changes they're wanting to make to the Ollie Act. You know, obviously the payroll is a big factor, but also this involves weight classes and what other health stuff is this act? Because this is not a story I've really, had a huge. I've never covered boxing. I don't. I understand the Ollie Act and I remember when it was passed. I've read about it, but it's like I'm just wondering like what. I'm just worried about, UFC and MMA is kind of the style of it's a little bit safer long term considering head injuries, right? Because in a UFC fight, you're not taking as many blows to the head as you are in a boxing match. Where you're seeing with boxers is that you're taking repeated blows, and you're doing it with heavier gloves, so there's more blows you can take, and it's the jarring of the brain that causes CTE, right? So do you guys have an answer on this? Because this is something that's the question to me is like, it's taken a long time to put reforms into boxing. I mean, it used to be it wasn't unusual to have 2 or 3 guys die in a ring a year in the United States, and I just see this as such a dumb idea to move back from. I'm just thinking. If UFC, I just think it is a PR disaster for them if they come into the sport and all of a sudden you're reeling back, health initiatives and things that like made the sport a lot safer, and then all of a sudden you start having the same old problems you had.
Well, I mean, like people don't know, but I mean, like boxing used to be the biggest sport on TV that there was, right? And until someone died on national TV, right?
At the Olympics.
Benny Paret, and it's a really brutal kind of like. I'm not recommending people to go out and see it, but like, effectively, a lot of the reform has been around, as you say, like making the sport safer. And I think any situation where like TKO with the reputation with UFC is coming in, I have to treat it as like not good, right? I can't look at like the Saudis coming in and TKO coming in as being something that's going to make your sport better. And I think that
Dana is a boxing guy, though. I mean, that kind of gives me that there's some boxing sense there. But I mean, especially, the Saudis are the ones putting the most money into this. That's a huge concern as far as the safety aspects to me.
It's the changing of who the sanctioning boards will be. So Zuffa having sort of like playing into that and the sanctioning, and that kind of like plays into the safety and health of the fighters. It's like
essentially what they wanted. They want to be able to put on what would be now unsanctioned fights in the U.S. Right, so they want to be able to like run the stuff past the governing bodies and past the boards. And I'm not going to get into and defend like
that works so well for pro wrestling.
Right, I'm not going to get into the whole justification and like I'm not claiming that like the WBA or WBO or something is this like holy situation. It's like let's talk about FIFA and try to like good guy FIFA or like the NCAA. I'm not going to do that, but effectively it's like if you gave me a choice between like FIFA and TKO, I'd be like, God damn it, man. This is what we've come to. It's like. I don't think I can ever view TKO as being a positive actor, and that's just again like, given what we knew before they got into WWE, I would not have viewed him as a good actor. Now it's like, oh God. I think you missed the conversation where I said like I admitted to being wrong because I thought that Triple H was going to be fired when the Janel Grant stuff dropped. because I thought that like TKO was going to clean house like a normal company because you can't have anybody who's involved in that stuff.
No
because
way.
it's a liability, right? And I was completely wrong. I was like, okay,
Didn't Ronda Rousey say something about that? Like,
yeah, Ronda did. Yeah,
she said like, how can Vince be gone if all his guys are still there?
yeah. Effectively,
She
She's
said
kinda
that he
wa-
was. She said that she doesn't think that he's gone.
Yeah.
Like, as in he's texting all of those people. That's that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what she had assumed. She didn't say she had any
Yeah.
proof of that.
No proof. She's just saying off because she'll just say it.
Well, I mean,
Allegedly.
she's
Allegedly.
smart.
She'll say
She's
it.
a
I
smart
think
person.
I think there's probably truth to that, but I don't have any proof of it. But
I mean,
also,
and if there was, right, they've proven that they're gonna run those chats through some software, and then they're gonna lose their phones and like.
no kidding.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
What's your take on the shareholder lawsuit? Because this is something that's kind of blown my mind, and Arturo is the one that brought this up, and he brings this up every time we discuss it, and it's probably because it's smart, and these guys are dumb.
Yeah, I mean, like,
but why haven't they just paid these? Why don't they just settle? Why not just get out of this misery?
I do wonder if the timing of them not having to pay the UFC fighters recently kind of wants them to push this far out so that they don't have another one of these things on their books so soon.
but see, here's the twist on that. I've mentioned this before. They didn't pay the UFC fighters. That lawsuit, it ended up being paid by I think it's for basically they spun that off. Yeah, they spun that off, and essentially they made it. So this has been my thing with this is like if they're not settling, they may. That's what I always thought. That rumor that we're going to possibly sell WWE might have been true because like TKO might be thinking we're not going to pay for this because it leaves somebody else holding the bag.
Well, I mean, I thought that they had to take a hit on their Q4 for this year. Like their revenue wasn't quite what was what it was, but everyone knew it was because of the UFC fighter lawsuit.
But they were able to move some of the liability off, right? It's kind of like so. My thought on this is the only reason you wouldn't settle because like the argument I make is like when you do this kind of deal. The reason the shareholders are suing is because they say, hey, these guys did not make the best sale possible for the shareholders, which is their responsibility. And they have a case. And the reason what the companies do is they have what they call it's a directed sale. I'm not selling to the best offer. I'm selling to who I want with the understanding that I'm going to get sued. But there's a number in their head when they do this and say, look, it's going to cost me $50 million to settle, right? But I'm willing to, like, basically the person who's buying the company is essentially underwriting the lawsuit. If that makes sense.
Right.
Essentially, it's part of the cost of the sale.
It's the strategy. It's a part of the strategy.
It's supposed to be baked in. And the thing that shocked me is if it's baked in, why are you letting this lawsuit play out? We're literally like, I was joking that like Nick Khan basically telling people like, get on Signal. Why are you taking notes on a criminal conspiracy?
Like this is like the Epstein stuff for the Michigan Spygate, where it's like it's the white collar kids that are trying to commit crimes and are really fucking bad at it.
The problem with this is always like the argument.
Was that The Wire? Are you taking notes on a crime?
That's what I was making. The other point of like the reason I thought they were going to fire HR and like just basically get rid of WWE HR, get rid of legal for WWE is. Here's the thing, like there's the thing that like there are these big law firms that exist in the US, and these law firms will fish for lawsuits. Like they look at a company and they look at the exposure and the liability. And I have to imagine there's people floating around TKO and WWE going like, who can we hire? Who can we find in WWE to do class action suit? Because the liability in this company from just having like people like Pritchard and Triple H and like Michael Hayes, all the people like, and I'm not even getting into like slicing like into all this stuff, all this like corruption and malpractice they're doing within the company leaves you open to exposure. So if you haven't changed your HR policy, and I forget who asked the question about their HR policy and the training, But if you haven't changed that policy, that means it is easy for me to prove, right? As a lawyer, I can make the argument that the culture within the company is broken, right? And I can point to all the payouts that you had to do for sexual harassment, right?
Mhm.
And you haven't made any changes. So this is why I'm like always kind
Well,
of
I mean,
shocked.
they
It's
could
like,
say, well, we made the biggest change, which is the guy who was the reason for
yeah,
all
but
that shit is gone.
But you can't claim bad man gone if all the executives and all the HR guys are still there, right? That's from a legal perspective that doesn't work, right? So this is why I'm kind of always kind of, why do you keep this lawsuit open? We're like, really now, like the judges are like going like, yeah, let's do discovery, let's open this shit up, let's see what's happening. And it is an exposure risk that increases. Like, to me, the thing that boggles my mind is this is the thing that over time will snowball and increase the cost of running the business, which is why, again, I am confused why they've let this thing go instead of settle. People talk about, like, if you're familiar with the dying days of WCW, right, which I'm assuming you are, Garrett, you know that they were getting sued all the time, and Warner would just freaking settle because, like, you do not want to create a situation where you're putting out discovery, you're putting out internal files, and you're putting out the liability, because essentially this snowballs. It creates a snowball effect, and lawyers smell that kind of effect. And as I said, they like I'm always reminded of the MLW suit, right? And I remember, like, when people first supported, they were making fun of what's the name of the guy from MLW?
Court Bauer.
Court Bauer, and they're making fun of Court Bauer. And then I immediately, when I looked at the suit, I saw who the law firm representing him was, and I looked up the law firm. And it's one of these big law firms that makes a living off of this kind of suit. And I was like, yeah, they're like, WWE's fucked. They're gonna have to pay him, right? Because I knew that this was a law firm that was basically costing court, and probably called him up and said, like, yes, we want this suit because we believe they have to pay, right? They have a spreadsheet somewhere that says they're going to have to pay this amount of money for this. And that's the situation they're creating, which is why it shocks me they haven't settled this thing.
Court gets a lot of shit, but I really like Court. I've hung out with him a lot. And not a lot, but I've hung out with him in the past. You know,
Nice guy.
I wanted to go back to the Ali Act that BJ asked about, because really what they are trying to do. So in boxing, you have if you put this fight together, you essentially, if you want to be the promoter, you have to prove that you can, like, put all of the money into this thing. And so you like the promoter of the fight cannot be the same person as the governing body, cannot be the same person who's kind of managing all of the things, right? Like that's essentially what the Ali Act makes sure.
There has to be accountability and there has to be oversight, essentially. Yes.
And so what UFC wants to do is they're like, no, we want to be judge, jury, and the executioner all at the same time, which means that they can basically create their own market for the fighters. So like, imagine, like, let's say in 5 years, Zuffa Boxing has, a lot of the top fighters under their umbrella. And let's say that the Turkey is like, okay, guys, like, I'm done putting in all of the money for these mega fights. Like, you could have Canelo Alvarez go, hey, I'm ready to do my one fight a year. And Dana White going like, we don't need it. Like, you can come fight for the, 1 million, 1.5 million that we give heavyweight, give the top fighters. And Canelo could be on the outside looking in, because that is exactly what is happening with John Jones and Conor McGregor right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their market is at a level that is several times higher than what Dana White and company are willing to pay fighters to fight for. And so I
and now those are marketable fighters. So what's the reason why they don't want to? What would your reason be for not having Conor McGregor, or paying the extra to put Conor McGregor or John Jones on TV? It's because you're getting a set rate from Paramount for every pay-per-view, right?
Yep. And you could put instead of putting John Jones on that show, you could take a lesser fighter who makes 1/5 of what John Jones would make, or even less. And your viewership will be less, but who cares, because you're locked in. And so I keep asking Dave, I say, okay, if you're Connor and you're John Jones and you still want to fight, how do you get out of your UFC contract so that you can go and say, hey, Jake Paul, like, I want this Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano money. Like, let's do business. Where's Logan Paul? I want to box Logan Paul, because then Jake is basically, using the same idea of, like, he's the promoter, he gets the money, he puts the thing together, and there's no governing body that caps that. So, the market for these fighters is what they're worth, what people will pay to see them. What Netflix sees as the big opportunity there, and instead, these guys are kind of locked into these UFC contracts, which I'm sure they paid them handsomely, but now there's no pay-per-view buy rate. So if you're Conor McGregor and you got $3 for every pay-per-view, and maybe that's low. I have no idea what he would get. But his whole thing was, I'm going to push this pay-per-view. I'm going to promote. I'm going to get people involved. I'm going to throw a dolly through a bus to create interest.
I'm going to commit felony assault with a
my whole
dolly
team is
in a parking lot.
destroy this. They're going to destroy this parking lot.
Hey man, Tiger G saying did it, so hey, no.
Well, I mean, but if your goal is to drive 1.5 million pay-per-view buys, because if you do, you're going to make $10 million for the fight, then that makes sense. But now there's no reason to use him, and for him, there's no reason to fight, because he's like, I'm fighting for pennies on the dollar of what I used to make, because there's no pay-per-view model.
Holy shit! Yeah, I just realized that because they're on Paramount, you don't get a cut of the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and
you would probably get a cut of the game.
So if you're WWE, and this is the other thing, is you now have a set amount of money you're getting from ESPN. So so if you're getting paid no matter what your buy rate, what is your real motivation to put on a better show, or to put, to make it better than like a really good episode of Raw if you're having a PLE?
BJ,
because you're getting paid the same.
But that's why Stephanie told us to get a VPN and watch it on Netflix. I know you laugh, but I'm serious. I mean, effectively, the only motivation they have, honestly, because they don't care. Because it's like, and I said this when this deal happened. Effectively, they get no extra revenue from additional pay-per-view dollars. And this is why the pay-per-views have been really shitty on ESPN. And I'll claim, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily why, but the other thing that's like driving, instead of having these cards that are filled in quality, they're having like these 4 or 5 match cards. They're mostly singles. They're not trying to put talent. So essentially, they're just trying to drive down costs to maximize profit and raise the live attendance prices, because they don't care about the pay-per-view virus, right?
Hey,
Which is kind of funny. Go
ahead. What do you not do with a musician?
Oh, you don't pay, like, there's a saying in Spanish which is like, músico paga no toca, which is like, if you pay the musician up front, they don't play. And effectively, this is kind of what's happening here, which is essentially you've removed the incentive for make the pay-per-view good. And it's been kind of funny the last few times. It's happened, they've gone head-to-head against CMLL and AEW pay-per-views and gotten completely blown out of the water in terms of quality, because they are not putting together a pay-per-view that is nearly on the level of what these other companies who are trying to sell the shows are. And it's tricky. It's a situation where, like, I do think it's a damaging model, because they put up paywalls, and their incentives are not to put on good shows for these shows that are like people having to pay. Like, if you're having to pay like $500 to go to this Mania, and like they put on one of these cards, like these cards that they put these last like few pay-per-views, man.
Did we get an update on where the NXT PLEs are going?
Nope.
I don't think we know. I mean, I think that, like, I know that it's happening in St. Louis, I think it was, right? Mm-hmm. St. Louis. But they haven't said where those PLEs are moving to. Somebody floated that they might go to YouTube like the AAA movies. I don't know. This is pure speculation. I don't want it out there that Arturo said that like they're going to YouTube. But right now, we do not know where they're going to. Could it be the CW app?
Wait, I'm getting on Twitter right now. Arturo says the NXT.
Oh God.
Okay. Cool number says. Okay. I'm gonna ask you 3 guys a question. This is something I really want to ask.
Okay.
because we've seen it. Okay, can WWE turn this around, make this Mania a great card? And two, can they turn around what we're seeing as far as ticket sales in time for the show? I want to hear what you three guys, if you each can take a turn here. Just what do you think about that? What would they have to do, I should say? What do they have to do to turn the ticket prices around or ticket sales around? And one part of that could be lowering prices, I guess. But the other thing is just what would they have to do to be able to make this a great show? Because right now it doesn't look like this is going to be a great show.
Well, okay, I'm gonna speak for me because like my sibling and my cousin, they are big WWE fans, right? So for them, WWE is delivering on a couple things. One, they wanted guys like Braun Breaker, they wanted guys like that to sort of break out this year. They see that with Obafemi, they see that in Trick Williams, and also like what we were talking about, the age and the repeat main events and the switching of guys. These are the same guys that have been on top, like even Drew McIntyre. And Randy Orton, these are guys that have been on top for like the last 6 years. And I'm saying 6 years because we are 6 years from the 2020 pandemic, and most of this fan base came after that pandemic. So you got a lot of people who are so used to these guys. And then a lot of these guys are aging out. You add on top of that the price of the tickets. That's the thing that's been going like sort of viral about WWE fans complaining about the price of tickets. Ticket prices go down, sure. We were joking at the top of the show about like buy one get one. We were talking about the NASCAR deal where you buy the NASCAR ticket and you get
buy one get
great.
WrestleMania. Yes.
Yeah, and like that's a great sell, But speaking as someone from Southern California, and all of us here love going to Las Vegas. I'm sure I know my guys from the Bay, Gary. You guys also love to go to Vegas, especially during this kind of thing. It's when we're seeing these oil prices surge and gas gets this expensive because most of us from California just drive over there. Some of us fly, but it's just prohibitively like expensive to go.
You think plane tickets are not going to be expensive, dude?
Oh yeah, that too. It's prohibitively expensive to go to Las Vegas for a weekend trip for a show that's going to be like, I don't know, maybe you get like 5-6 matches and then you're going to be sitting there because my brother and my cousin, they went to WrestleMania. They said they were sitting there on their hands for like 15 minutes between matches, and it's not a good live event. Like, it's not a good live event experience. And then we're also to flip it around. What they would have to do, lower the ticket prices. 1, 2, they'd have to have like programs that are hot, featuring guys that the audience is like hot for. And I'm talking about new guys. Unfortunately, Braun Breaker got injured. I don't know how bad the injury is.
So if they would have main evented, if the main event would have been something involving like a Jacob Fatu versus a Braun Breaker,
it would have been Seth and Braun.
Yeah, it would have been Seth and Braun.
But I'm just saying, involving
something exciting.
Okay.
Yeah, if it was something exciting, like something new and exciting that people could like sort of pump up, like. For in 2023, Cody was new and exciting, right? He was new and exciting. Yeah. And then in 2023, he had that huge run of live events where everybody wanted to come and see him. He wins the belt in 2024, and then he's still doing good business. And then it's just that there's this lack of movement within WWE, within like their main event scene, and sort of artificially bringing these guys up from NXT, like Obafemi. What is Obafemi going to do for WrestleMania? Rusev? What is Gunther doing for WrestleMania? I don't know. What is he going to do? Rey Mysterio?
LA Knight, isn't it supposed to be LA Knight?
I don't know. Because there's these stars.
But no, it's LA Knight. Sorry, LA Knight is Brock. I forget who
that was the plan for Brock earlier this year. I don't know if that's still the plan for Brock.
Was Brock and Gunther?
Is that why he eliminated him? That's why he eliminated him. Oh.
He eliminated him. He and Cody eliminated Brock, and Michael Cole was like, "Oh, Brock's eliminated. Let's move on."
What a way to promote your. Well, you can't always. Arturo, Arturo? We'll let Garrett goes last since he's our special guest.
So
But
the
Arturo,
problem I've mentioned that the part of the problem is they have a debt trap. Where when I say a debt trap is they have debt to service. I suspect that Triple H and WWE also have like a fixed salary budget too, which complicates things somewhat. The other problem they have historically is that WWE is not a territory that is good at building talent. They've always been better at rating talent and bringing it in. And even this run, it's Punk and Cody and Zammy, who are guys who are coming in from outside who really
Cody was their guy, though. He was. It
yes,
was with
but
them from the beginning.
But
and
did you
he
know that
decided
Cody?
to leave?
Do you know Cody before leaving was on record to set the record of all time for most losses by a WWE wrestler?
Yeah, they didn't believe in him.
Yeah, so
very clearly didn't believe in him.
And again, like Cody was a guy who like went outside to the different world, and like it's funny because when I was making the Hall of Fame case for Cody, I'd be like, you know how many gate records he has? He has so many silly gate records for all these like buildings. So he's a guy who had a
Cow
track
Palace.
record. Yeah, I mean, like
but
the point is these guys get built outside of the company and come in, and they have a problem with like how they push it. Even the Roman thing, like I've been the guy who's saying like the Roman thing really was. They looked eventually it worked, but it did not work for a very long time, right? And they have a problem where like they pushed the wrong guy or like they skipped the moment. I always remember things like they had Moxley or Dean at the time, and they had him lose to Triple H when like the entire crowd and it's one of the worst Royal Rumble decisions they ever made. Like everybody wanted Dean, but they wouldn't.
Yeah, because they had Triple H and Roman as their end.
Well, but yeah, I mean, like Dean and Roman wouldn't have drawn. But like the point being that like essentially the problem they have now is their roster is very very old, right? And they're not very good at building up talent for that. And the other real problem is, and this actually has become a real problem, which is they don't have the quality of workers, the mechanics, the guys around it that can kind of like raise the level of its matches. And it's funny because it almost seems like Undertaker is basically taking all the great workers and taking them to AAA, right? Or the guys who can like kind of like, and I'm not saying like guys, but like guys who can like work decent matches are not available, and that kind of complicates matters because you have an aging roster, you don't have the people to kind of do that, and the people they should push are people that the booker hasn't shown a tendency to push. And I make this statement, it's like I think under Triple H, I think there's no black single star has won a singles match on a pay-per-view, right? Like clean 1, 2, 3. That has not happened since Triple H came on board. And maybe they changed that, but they do seem to be kind of a
I think that'll change.
I mean, I think so too, but they haven't, like, until I see it, I have to be like the guy going like, hey man, it's been like what, 5-6 years? Like
I mean, they're putting guys on the roster to make that move, but it's like until they do it, they haven't done it yet.
According
I
to
know
Triple H,
Alfred Cheeseboard Conawara says that we're missed in the middle of a African American renaissance in WWE.
And I think the other problem, this is a big one, is they should cut ticket price because effectively, live events should be something that like is driving the TV product, which is amazing.
Okay, so we are looking at this in a very specific way, which I'm fine with because that's what we do as wrestling fans is we look at this in that way. You guys know that they probably don't have to sell another ticket to this show, and they're going to break their own record for biggest weekend ever. Like you guys know that.
This is a top 10 gate already, just without.
Yeah, I mean the issue here is that you're burning the resellers, right? By raising the price, you're burning the resellers. It's not going to look as good on TV, so it devalues the product. It's the kind of, and I've talked about this when they went to this closed model. It's going to be like what happened to UFC, where like UFC has kind of become less culturally relevant because I've made this argument before.
UFC is printing money though.
I know, but I'm saying like from a long-term perspective, and this is the argument I'll make, is like it's the Bugs Bunny argument. Like you have to have that IP in front of people, or that IP starts becoming less and less relevant over time. So it is tricky, and I think that like what they need, and we said it, they need to figure out a way to get better shows, right? And moving the price point up is going to burn their fan base from going to live events, and that is going to lead to worse looking TV, and it's going to make the IP worse. So they need to figure out a way, like effectively their product is the live events, right? Everything is built around the live event, the live experience, and that's what you're selling to people. and you have to protect that. And they're not. I don't believe they're in a mentality where they're protecting that. And there's going to come a point where people are going to stop spending like this amount of money for these shows, right? And that's a dangerous thing for them to get there. And I don't see, like, the other part is like, this is why they probably hated EW, which is like, I don't know, like, who are they going to get that like AEW is not going to pay? That's the other part. Like, where's this next star that they need, this money drawing star, going to come from?
I have a feeling if it was the right person, they would pay.
Yeah.
It's why
I think it's also part of it. I think. Go ahead.
It's why I don't think they're going to lowball these guys the way that Arturo is saying, because you cannot compare Roman Reigns to Tommaso Ciampa. I love Tommaso Ciampa, but you have 20 Tommaso Ciampas on that WWE roster that you can get rid of tomorrow that will pay for Roman Reigns and whomever that you want at the top level.
But Garrett,
It's a stars and scrubs mentality.
Yeah.
But that is how they're going to keep the payroll where they want it to be. And their theory, I don't know if this is going to work, but they are trying to prove this to us with Braun Breaker, Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes, Obafemi, is I'm going to get rid of Tommaso Ciampa. You know, Johnny Gargano's doing planks on top of the thing. Like, and I love both of those guys, right? But at the end of the day, are they moneymakers for WWE? No, they're great hands. And when you put them against the Motor City Machine Guns, there is a certain segment of that fan base is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And then there's a certain segment of that fan base that says, I will sit here and clap because that is what my job is, but I can't wait to see Cody Rhodes. Like, like that is the
So Arturo, I'm going to ask. So obviously, you see that you have to drop ticket prices. What do you think? What can they do to the main event to change it between now and Mania? Can you see something that could move?
I don't. I mean, like, the problem with this is now you can't really drop ticket prices because you're going to screw the people who already bought up front, and you're going. You effectively have to write this out. Like, they're essentially you don't want to burn your ticket resellers. You don't want to burn the hotels that brought this shit. You don't want to burn.
Yes. And plus, I liked your idea that, and I'm relying on your idea that we've discussed, not idea, but what's probably going to happen, which is there's going to be a lot of comps at the casinos if you're drunk. And I am planning on that if I go to Vegas and watch Mania.
I was going to say, because the reason I say that is because I mentioned that the Raiders home game sold 55,000 tickets on average. And about 67% was from coming out of town. And so I forget. I think it was
that's insane. That is
want to see their home team win.
Yeah, but essentially, like, Allegiant Stadium is a theme park ride built so you can watch your NFL team get.
And by the way, Fernando Mendoza, you don't have Max Crosby when you get drafted by the Raiders coming up.
But I think the other point I was going to raise on this, which is like, they're going to comp the tickets to get this out. The problem now is if you lower it, you're going to kind of burn people. Like, I think the only person who could have saved this Mania in terms of attendance is the person they were trying to get, who I told people he was never coming in, which is Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny was never coming in to like this WWE now.
Hey, did you guys hear the rumor of they're trying to get Tom Brady?
Yes, they're trying to get Tom Brady. They couldn't get Bad Bunny now. Trying to get
Tom Brady's kind of locked in. Like, he's got merch and everything.
Yeah.
Really?
I think Brady, but is Brady moving any tickets? Maybe.
I don't know.
By the way, I watched.
He's got to be
I know
involved
this is completely off. I know this is completely off topic, but the AMC 49ers documentary with Tom Brady is one of the best.
Yeah, it was really
football.
good.
It doesn't get into the drama and nonsense that the Dallas Cowboys Netflix one did. It was really good. But Garrett, I'm going to ask you. Okay, you see this as already a financial success because this is going to be a top 10 gate.
Yeah.
They don't give a damn about what the stands look like.
Well, look,
how do you fit if you want as a fan? What would you change in this main event to make it more compelling to you?
Okay, I want to say I don't only look at the dollars and cents of the wrestling stuff and say they're doing fine. You know, there's not going to be, but it ultimately anyone that teaches you about the wrestling business tells you that it's literally just about the money and the people that they have running that company.
To quote Kim Woods, okay.
Well, not only Kim Woods, but in my career in working for startups. We had we called him the coach, but he was a he was a guy who would invest in companies and come and help and kind of coach young CEOs. And he comes into one of our meetings, one of our all hands meetings, and he's like, people are going to tell you it's about the money, but I'm going to tell you that is incorrect. It's about the fucking money.
Well, I mean, he's not. I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, I think that like effectively, this is a success from a gay perspective. Yeah. There's implications to
yes. I think that's what you're. I think you're bringing out. I think that's something too that. I mean, we've seen WWE kind of slip and slide on ways that in the past.
You know,
but where it's like, okay, they could have prevented this if they would have done this a year ago, and they should have saw it. But I think there's also, it's like when you get insulated from it, you don't make changes as fast as you do. And I think they got lucky when Cody came over. Let's just face that. That kind of was fortunate for them. I don't think they would have been able to create a Cody. But anyway, Garrett, just what was you as a fan? What would have been what would you think what would make a great main event for you for Mania? If it would you do you like the main event?
I think the main event is the right main event. I don't think that they've created a compelling reason quite yet for these guys to be mad at each other. We're going for low-hanging fruit here, which is part of my issue with the storyline.
Because
on the other side,
dead dad. It's
MJF who did that 5 years ago.
Oh yeah,
it's Christian Cage who does that. Every time he's in AEW, and I didn't think it was necessary because then Roman's gonna now talk about his dead dog, which was like real for Punk, right? So, I think. I think what's going to make me happy is they have to put on some matches with talent who is maybe underutilized right now simply because of where they are in the hierarchy. Now, Rhea Ripley's got she's going to have a yeoman's like effort with Jade Cargill, right? We already know that's going to be a tough one. Man. The one that I want to see is Io Sky and Asuka, and I want them to just go, okay, ladies, you got 20, cook.
Yes.
They may come out of that.
As I've tried to make this case, the best friend a booker can have is to have a handful of guys who are super over that you can stick out there randomly and get the crowd excited and fans excited for 20 to 30 minutes and be able to just leave it at that.
You mean like booking Mystico in LA?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They threw him in that trios match. I think they're gonna move.
Well, I'm just gonna say, as the I've talked about Garrett, and me and Garrett are big fans of the Wrestling Reporters, but I'm also a big fan of the McLaughlin Group. And in the words of John McLaughlin, I will say you are all wrong. I will say the key to making this WrestleMania a success and selling it out is Travis Scott in a box with Danhausen, and that I will stick to that till I die, or until I get a comp ticket outside of a casino.
Yeah,
you are wrong.
Sorry, Garrett.
Let me. I got a follow up question. Let me do this. This is where it's going to get interesting. Not WrestleMania. They're doing a 2-night SummerSlam in Minneapolis, and that is gonna be it. I don't know how that's gonna work out. That's the one I'm kind of looking at.
It could literally be the Brock Lesnar retirement match.
Right, yeah. But how's that going to play in Minneapolis? In Minneapolis right now.
That's where he's from.
Yes, but right now, we're ignoring the political situation and how WWE is perceived.
I think he's going to be over there if they play it up. I think at Minnesota's probably if there's a safe place, they can do anything with him.
You're not going to have. You're going to have a very specific WWE crowd there to pay tickets to watch that match. I agree with you. And who knows where we are in this political culture in the summer. It could be way worse, and then it would change things. But I'm going to be in San Jose for Dynamite, and is Tony going to have the courage to put Brody King on TV? Because I had people reaching out to me who plan to be on that show who want the fuck ice chant to be going on all night long.
But they did it for Don Callis. They did the fuck Don Callis and fuck ice too. So I don't think necessarily it's going to be.
they didn't have him on the Ontario show, even though he was at the building.
Right, but I think like the thing is, I think it's gonna organically happen, despite Brody. It's probably good for Brody that it's not happening just because of him, right?
Yeah.
In terms of how these things are gonna play out because of other things that are going on. But I do think that I think that like that's gonna be. I think it's gonna be interesting in that LA show. I think that you might, that's a place where you could get some of that too.
I'm gonna also admit something in that. My wrestling fandom has changed over the years. And I would say when it comes to how I watch wrestling today, it is very similar to how a beat reporter would watch a sport that they're covering. Like,
I get that.
I enjoy good wrestling matches like everyone else. But when I watch an AEW show, do I want 5 hours of good matches that kind of have the same ebb and flow? Not all the time, like, because I know that I have to watch it and I gotta take notes and I gotta write it, talk about it, and that's just kind of the way. So sometimes, like a show like WrestleMania, for me, while the wrestling fan in me is like, I hope this thing is awesome, the person who also covers this in the way that I do, what is the story coming out of it is almost more important than the quality of the show that I'm watching. So
it's both teams played hard, Garrett. Both teams played hard. Yes.
So here's the other thing, right? I think the problem with WWE coverage right now, and it's actually not a problem. It's part of the story, which is, Jay-Z once said, "They pray and pray on my downfall." And there's a lot of people who are dying to predict the downfall of WWE, and they've been doing it for 20 years, right? It's like, this is this mistake is going to cause this thing to happen. The Janel Grant thing, poor Janel Grant's out there in public now, and what a brave woman to do all of those things. But at that time, 6 years ago, or how many ever years ago, were when that story came out, 3 years ago, I guess. Like there was a lot of people going like, "Oh man, I don't know if they can get out of this one." And
I will say, I wrote a column right after that civil complaint was filed, and then I first heard that from a source that there was going to be a federal criminal case. I wrote a column that said Vince McMahon's going to end up in jail, and the McMahons will be out of wrestling.
And
I was very lucky that Trump won, honestly.
I was going to say there are external factors in play.
I still think that's obvious. That's going to happen, mainly because we're just running out of McMahons to put in the wrestling, if Triple H, obviously Stephanie's no longer involved, but I also don't think that if Vince lives long enough, and if I think that you'll see some kind of case based on the former charges come back. I think.
Yeah, I mean, you want justice, but again, going back to my point.
But you're right about the fact that it's funny because people. AEW fans, I'll confess to this, is that I get annoyed at the fact that there's always a death watch for AEW. Every week they're dying. Oh my God, they didn't have a 4-star match on that show. They're dying. Oh my God, I didn't understand there was no story, as Bubba Dudley would say, even though Hangman Page and Swerve are telling like a story, and it's like, oh yeah, they're dying. But it's like in the same case, WWE, I think it's because they become this monolith, and they've been able to survive some massively huge mistakes, and they've had luck with that. But at some point, don't you
all of those things?
But don't you think that at some point, I mean, they're as financially secure as they've ever been right now. So it's hard to say now anything's going to happen. But I mean, at some point you got to think, maybe it's 10, 20, 30 years down the line. Maybe we'll all be dead, but it's like, but this happens with every company, so I don't know. But it's just like at some point you just think, man, this is going to catch up to them sometime. It's like, how many offers do you have a Cody Rhodes just happen to be a free agent when you just buried your entire company to get Roman over? It's just like, it just seems to me, it's just like, I mean, I don't want to see people lose their jobs and the company to crash, but at the same time, it's like you get sick of seeing the same people get away with crap on certain issues, if you know what I'm talking about.
But by the way, this is a long-term process of the thing. Like this is the marathon, not a sprint. Yeah. And this is like, and I've made this point in one of our earlier, like I think one of our first podcasts, I said, AEW should not worry about WWE over much, and they've gotten smarter about that. Like, don't counter program, let them sweat about you, run your shows, do good product, keep building your fan base, and deliver good product and good fan service. Make the shows cheap, make the shows accessible, and if you keep doing that over time, over the long period of time, that'll work, right? You basically have to build consumer confidence. You're a challenger brand, you have to do that. And the whole thing where they were getting in front and getting into these battles, like it just was not the correct thing to do. WWE has built this confidence to the point where like they're synonymous with wrestling, and that plays a part. I mean, this is I think why they get all the like people like Vaquero coming in. It's like because they were the definition of wrestling what people were shooting for, the WrestleMania moment. And I think over time that's going to change, that's going to evolve, but it takes time. And we're at this point we're like what 7 years into there being an actual challenger brand in the US after like 20 years of there not being one. So it takes time for this to evolve and change.
Yeah.
And what is important, I think that like this is like what you want to have like varieties of wrestling out there so that it's not just the Northeast style, and like we protect like the other companies, so there's always some variety out there and things that are happening. So if you like something, follow it and pay for it, guys.
Yeah.
I have to bounce here in a second, but I wanted to kind of close what I was saying
Sure.
with this, which is I think the worst thing about AEW fans is the AEW apologists. Like I already see people making excuses for Tony Khan's booking when it comes to Hangman Page losing. Hangman Page hasn't even lost yet. And there are people making excuses for what if he loses and how does he get back in the title picture?
It's such a terrible idea. Right? Why would you take the worst idea you've had?
Now
that
that's
probably left till you losing Cody Rhodes and decide, oh, you know what? Let's do this with our biggest star again.
Sometimes it's like, I know we can get it right. I just know we can, right? Sometimes it's that. But that's a small sliver of the AEW fans. Sometimes they're very loud, so they seem like a bigger part of that audience. And on the flip side, you have the WWE bootlicking influencers who they lean on to tweet and post stuff that is not factual and that there's no source for other than them. And in a way, it's kind of the same audience. They are very small, but then they are loud. And so you look at the WWE fan base and you go, that's what the WWE fan base is, those guys. No, they're very small. Just like on the AEW side. Everyone in AEW just apologizes for Tony Khan. No, that's a very small portion of their fan base.
Yeah.
So that if you are booking towards that part of your fan base, I think you're kind of missing the big picture. And what I'm hoping for is, and by the way, Revolution, I'm talking about Revolution. I'm watching the Oscars, guys. Like I'm not watching wrestling. It's the one award show that my wife is interested in. Mm-hmm. We're gonna start about an hour late so that we could fast forward through all the commercials, and it's a
good idea.
We're gonna back in and just kick back and watch the Oscars, which means I'm not gonna be able to watch Revolution until much later. I'll still be able to cover it. I'll still be able to talk about it. But it's like this kind of thing where, all of this product that we have. I didn't watch Elimination Chamber live either. I kind of watched it. Bits and pieces, and I finished it the next day. But what happens is you have so much product that we have to make decisions. Like if it's WrestleMania heads up against the NBA Finals and my team is in the NBA Finals, like WrestleMania is getting the Heisman. Like you just have to have priorities. Yeah. And as more content is available and as these guys compete, they're going to force fans to make choices as well. And I think that is part of the ecosystem currently that these companies kind of overlook, which is what is the priority of watching this wrestling show, which to Arturo's point, if you get into the habit of putting on these pay-per-views, which Triple H then goes, and we're gonna have some great surprises. And then at the end of the show, when you look at the surprises, you're like, there wasn't one single surprise, dude. I don't know what you're kind of you're crying wolf here, but if
I wish
you
they
get
would.
into-
I wish there were still pressers, just so nobody would ask. Just so nobody would ask that question.
and then on the
It's all part of
AEW
the show.
on the AEW side, now this is something that not a lot of people talk about. But if I watch Dynamite and I get a Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland match, that is like a 4 3/4 star match, and you're giving it to me for free, I'm investing my 2 hours in AEW. And then my guy, Kenny Omega, he's not on this Revolution pay-per-view. Like,
Kenny-
And
you
he's
know,
doing
Kenny-
Capcom promotion.
No, see, but Kenny's dead, Garrett. He's dead. He'll come back to life, but he's dead right now.
yeah. Every other month, this brother gets beaten like nobody's business. So, anyways, it's a great wrestling ecosystem right now. Like Arturo said, the variety is fantastic. I mean, in another, if I was 25 years younger, I would really try and figure out how to watch CMLL for one. And so it's just, while it is great and while we have so many options to watch, at the same time we're also competing with our phone, YouTube, all of these streaming channels that I pay for, and sometimes I just kind of want to go to the movies and watch Crime 101 over watching a wrestling pay-per-view. Like it's like, that's what we're kind of competing against. So
Go ahead, Arthur.
I was going to say that essentially, and I keep raising this point, is you have to present to me something new that I haven't seen before, exciting that I want to watch to get my dollars, right? And the problem for WWE is they're not doing that, right? And they got hot for a while because they got in front of an audience that hadn't seen it before, but they haven't figured out how to give this new or move on. They really haven't moved on from the Attitude Era, still, even like 25, 26, 27 years on. And that is diminishing return. And I commend AEW for keeping the roster shifting and moving and putting the young guys like Kevin Knight in the middle of in the middle of highlights, moving the Luchadors in.
That brother lost twice, man.
That's fine, but
it's not fine. He should not have taken 2 L's on one show.
You know what?
He lost to MJF and then he got pinned at the end. Oh.
I'm fine with it losing. He's selling an injury angle. I'm okay with it. This is what it is. He's that guy getting a rub on a first run.
I've never seen. I can't remember the last time I saw a top level babyface lose 2 matches in one night.
Well, not a babyface, but we can talk about Kyle Fletcher losing to the kangaroo kick. If you want to, this is not.
That was before he was Kyle Fletcher.
Yeah, they didn't see him.
That was about 100 pounds ago.
He should be paying for every Mark Davis dinner because Mark Davis getting hurt was the best thing for his career.
I'm gonna say
effective.
It's about kind of how you sell me on these things and you give me something new and different and exciting. And this is always. The key for wrestling is you have to keep moving. You have to change the roster up. You have to try things and try people in places so that you get something new so people are excited to watch, right? So you find something that people want to watch and get excited about. And again, as I said, WWE has been great at rating over time, right? But they haven't been great at finding that guy within their own roster. And a lot of times there's a tweet from me before Cody left where I was like, I don't know why the hell they weren't pushing him, because I would see him and go that dude is the guy who they should have been pushing.
We all loved him. We all rooted for him. We all rooted for him to be the guy that his dad wanted him to be. And when you have an old man who is very, there's a reason why it's the 18 to 49 demographic, right? Because the old man is going to be very set in his ways, and he was set in his ways, and that was the product that we got. But, Dave Meltzer, I was talking to him the other day, and I forget what we were talking about, the Great Mephisto or something. And he was saying how you could copy angles in the old days, in the 70s, because the bookers looked at their audience as turning over every 3 years. So you could do an angle and then 3 years later redo the exact same angle, maybe even with similar people, or maybe with change it up a little bit, because the expectation is that you had a brand new audience by then. So that is not what we have today. We have people like myself. I was talking to David Sahadi today, the old producer.
TNA. Yeah.
And you know, when he was working for WWE, we were talking about Austin and his WrestleMania 14 run, and I said I remember exactly where I was at when in the Fresno show after the Royal Rumble, where they introduced Mike Tyson on television and put him in the ring with Austin, and Austin pushes this dude, and I like that was such a visceral, memorable angle because, you know, we all know that it's fake, but it's like, oh, I'm not quite sure about that one. Like Austin dialed up the intensity
Whatever
a
doubt
little
you
bit.
had of Austin being a badass just evaporated.
Oh my
And
God.
on top
And
of
so-
that, it was on every single TV show in the world the next day.
And that was, and the day
Yeah.
before, Mike Tyson's calling him Cold Stone. I don't think he
Stone.
called him Cold Stone after that one. But
No.
but like you know, that is 1998, and so I'm like 21 years old. Like that's, you know, that is such a long time ago, and I remember that. So, you know, what Arturo is saying, like, give me something new. I don't know if there's anything left. Like, we've seen so much stuff, and that's got to be really, really hard, not only for the wrestlers, but for these bookers too, to kind of give new things or put a slant on things
Well, I mean,
that have worked.
we
in the
just had a
past.
booker. We just had a booker hang it up this week, and I mean, the job's killer. You know, I mean, I don't think Road Dogg Jesse James is going to go down like as Bill Watts or one of the great bookers of all time. But
Oh
you
no,
know,
I mean, I'd argue he's really bad booker, but like,
yeah, he's terrible.
You know, this may be, you know, in the UFC when Dana White said Chuck Liddell and Matt Hughes will have jobs for life, and then the second Endeavor buys them, like those guys are the first guys to get booted. This could be a version of that.
Well, I mean,
But
I
the
think
story
Road Dogg.
right-
I used to joke that like there are guys who you have on the raw. Like this is a joke I used to have when I worked in corporate. There's a guy you have under you who's like when you're an executive, who's like your $5 bill you have in your shoe, and like in an emergency, like you know, it's like having an offensive coordinator you fire when things are going bad. So like I feel like Road Dogg kind of like got the boot, which is kind of interesting because I've kind of thought that like I mean I feel like TKO wants to have a figurehead, so that kind of makes Triple H's.
I mean, the 5 they have now doesn't work.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of tells me that there's some heat there because like I would think that like Road Dogg's the kind of guy you fire when it's like firing a coordinator where things are going bad, right? So
It did have a feel of that Eric Bischoff Heyman deal where they
Yeah.
hired those two to run Raw and SmackDown just months before they were going on Fox, when they knew they weren't going to hit the target ratings they were supposed to be promising because, you know, the business had changed, you know, TV business had changed. And it's like, you know, Heyman survived it, but Bischoff obviously did. He lasted, I think, what, 2 months?
To their credit, I mean, I think one, Heyman didn't do a bad job, and two, Heyman is the guy who's booking a lot of the main events. So,
Yeah, but those guys didn't matter because it was still the same guy at the end of the day calling the plays. Like,
but my point is they were there to be, you know, they were there to be the guys you fire.
I'll go one further. They were there because Vince didn't want to put Triple H in that spot.
Ooh.
Well, I mean, if we want to
That's
get into
interesting.
Triple H did lose to AEW. For
yeah, at
so
the
many
time,
weeks.
people forget how far out like Triple H got into the weeds at the time, right? Really,
He was absolutely humiliated by Vince, and I don't think people realize that. And then when people were questioning why would Steph or, you know, possibly Paul, you know, leak this story to the Wall Street Journal, and it's like, I don't know. Have you seen how he's reacted to how they've done their work? I think they got demoted like 3-4 times in the years before that. But
I mean, I've always been again going back. I always thought.
And by the way, Triple H is no Lamamia. I don't know, Garrett. I don't know if you know who Lamamia is from, but these guys have been showing me some Bolivian luchador wrestling, and I just want to say shit is awesome. It's amazing. I love it to death. Hey, they set themselves on fire. They run around the crowd. If people want to watch something exciting, turn this crap on. I was up till 2 o'clock or something, 3 o'clock in the morning after talking to these guys and watching these crazy matches, and I'm loving it. And I'm sending to my brother, and the next thing I know, it's like 5 in the morning, and we're sending each other YouTube links of Bolivia Lucha Libre, you know, and it's like, I'm just like, what in the hell am I doing with my life?
You were looking,
but
you were looking for the feeling.
But I was loving
the feeling,
it.
BJ. You were looking
Yes.
for the feeling.
I had the feeling. It was great. I'm just like, these guys, I'm like, I don't care how many fire suits they're wearing. Nobody's supposed to stay on fire this long. It's like,
And they ran into the crowd.
And then they ran into the crowd. I'm like, that was, I did not expect that. I'm just
I think
Bolivia
that, like,
fire safety is.
But Garrett, I just want to
times.
tell you, Bolivian Lucha Libre is the future of wrestling creative in America, and I will stand by that because I love the shit out of it, and I just base everything I will say this: I am overly biased on stuff that I like, and I will say that at least on that terms. If somebody brought in a Lamamia and let him set himself on fire and run around the crowd, I will name them Booker. If I had the vote, I would name him Booker of the Year.
All right, I got to bounce out, but what I wanted to end on was, I know that Larry does not show his face, so all the shows that I do are on video. Arturo, are you also the faceless? Are you guys wouldn't even wear like Excalibur masks
Yeah. So okay, fine. We'll break kayfabe here. I have got contacted by a Mexican mask maker from Tijuana, and they are making me a mask as we speak.
It's better. You better be able to speak through it, though.
Oh, it's a bandito style mask,
Okay.
so we're good.
Because I would love to have you guys on one of my shows and just kind of shoot the stuff. Like, also, you know, just to bring my audience a little bit more aware of what you guys do. Because, you know, the fact that you get BJ to hang out and just shoot the stuff, and like, I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I thought BJ was the one who I reached out to originally when I was like, who is this guy? Like, he reached out to me, said he did a show with you, and BJ was like, yeah, he's a cool guy, could do it, it'll be fun. I was like, all right, I'm in. So
Yeah.
I mean, I would have never discovered Funk and Wyndham or Puerto Rico, or Zeus or Tiny Zeus Vister versus Abdul the Butcher.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I will tell you this: bad, horrendous matches with angry crowds are just as good as great matches.
Yeah,
and I would never have discovered my hero, who I will believe should be in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame, and I'm going to push this with Dave every chance I get. La Mamia from Bolivian Lucha Libre.
Well, you got to see, the thing is you got to get somebody to write the historical thing and send it to Dave.
They're gonna have to like do research on Titanes and like do the La Momia in Titanes.
I'll go to Bolivia. I will find this guy. I will do. I'll go through the newspapers. Are they Portuguese down there or Spanish?
It's Spanish.
It's Spanish. Okay, I'll have to brush up on the Spanish.
I also haven't told this story yet, but I'm gonna break this because whatever. Me and Garrett actually met in December with Jeremy Feinstein, great guy. So Garrett does know how handsome I am. So you know, just like all
I know the shoot name. I made him give me the shoot name so that I could text him because I wasn't gonna put his working name in my phone.
Well, my working phone is my phone, so Dr. Larry Yacht.
It's funny because like the people who probably know him from like spaces on the internet is Dr. Larry, and it's kind of funny. Oh, you're Doc. Okay.
Look, I have these wrestling people in my phone sometimes just because I have to produce and make connections with Dave, and I don't put their. You know what? Actually, let me think about this. No, Jim Ross's name is Jim Ross, so he doesn't have a working name. I got to think about that. You know what? I may actually have some wrestling.
I mean, it's got to be. It's like if the guy asks you to, then you respect that. You respect the kayfabe, right? But,
well, I mean, they wouldn't know what name I put them in my phone. Yeah, but anyways, okay, guys. Like, if you guys do want to do something, you know, let me know, and we'll do something on my network.
I'm down, but it's like I'm down. We'll do it.
We're down.
Okay. All right, guys.
If I have to use my La Parka mask, I'm down. Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks, Garrett. Again, from Fight Game Media, Garrett Gonzales. You can hear him every week on Fight Game Media. You can hear him every week on the Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave, which now that he's not here, that's the superior show to the Brian show. So listen to that show.
I'm gonna say that it's like there was a long run in this. Like we were watching this Hayabusa, we were watching this Michinoku Pro, and Hayabusa came down as a surprise. It was the fourth man, so that was kind of
Whoa! What was this?
Oh, we were watching a Michinoku Pro match, and Hayabusa came down as the fourth man. As Hayabusa and I forget who else came. Like it was a great match. It's like literally like 8 of the all-time best workers just in a match.
And then last night we were watching like Michinoku Pro, which I think you would be into.
I love Michinoku Pro. I got a tape a friend made because he managed to somehow get I think my brother may have illegally, or I think my brother may have got on the phone and ordered barely legal ECW. And that was like when they had the 8-man, remember?
Oh yeah,
the Michinoku Pro 8-man, and that ended up leading to like Taka Michinoku getting signed by WWF. And I saw that match, and that was like my journey. And then I remember the cruiserweights were happening on it, and I'm like, okay, there's more of this great stuff from Japan, and that was what really got me excited about Japanese wrestling. So then I started. That Michinoku Pro was what really pushed me into go. Okay, next thing I know, I go buy the J Cup tapes. Next thing you know, I'm buying All Japan. Next thing you know, I'm buying whatever. And I mean, I didn't have a lot because back then, it cost money to get the stuff, and there was only a few really good providers that got good quality, but it started me on that run. And Michinoku Pro, I think, was a very landmark, groundbreaking promotion that does not nearly get the credit it deserves.
And that sort of leads me to this point. So Michinoku Pro Wrestling, they run this tournament back in the 90s called the Fukumen tournament. That's basically the Masked Man tournament. And, we had this sort of little bit of a stupid kerfuffle with Sean Rassap paying he posted the unmasked version of Dragon Lee online. He had to, he stopped it. The argument, because I know Arturo's going to go, because we've been on this journey of Lucha Libre to the point where we talk to some of the greatest Lucha Libre historians out there. Shout out to you, Orlando. Shout out to you, Kevin, Keith, and Keith Rainville. And this whole thing.
I will say on my podcast, I don't, speaking of newsmakers and historians, I had a Lucha blog on my first edition of the BJ Interviews Everyone podcast, and he was fantastic. And everything he said about what WWE needed to do with AAA, it sounded like they listened to that podcast.
Well, I mean, I think that to give credit on AAA, I'm going to give credit to WWE here, which WWE has hired the right people to run it. They got the right people in the room.
Arturo, did you see Pimpinella on the stretcher? Crying her heart out to El Grande Americano, and I just wish he kissed her. I just
dude,
there was that tension there.
Not on free TV. You got to pay for that.
Man, I wouldn't. What happened?
We're both really into Grande Americano, and we think that that is a great gimmick, and they understand how to do that. And I think he's a great worker, and he's just taken to the role to heart. And it's funny because we hear him talking in an Norteño accent, and it's just hilarious. Dude, dude knows how to work that. Okay, but the point. But let me make this point, right? So, Sean. I've been watching I've been doing a lot of Lucha research for something else I'm working on, and looking at historical angles and everything else. And one thing that needs to be said is from the start, one of the key moves is stealing the heel move. It is stealing the mask, right?
Yeah.
And this is the point that the photographers from Arena, Mexico were making. Ocampo was making this all the circles go dude, yes, they take the mask off, but nobody takes the fucking picture because that is a heel move. He didn't lose the mask in an Apuestas match, so you can't do this. Is not like Japan where they tear off the mask. Japan, we watched the Michinoku match we were matching. They tore off the mask. They tore off the mask. That's the thing they do in Japan. But in Mexico, you're not supposed to show the face, and they have pictures of all these guys without the mask, and you don't show that. Now, it was shown to be for a second, which is the point Dave was making. But here's the thing: I could watch when MJF was stealing masks from Mexicans in as part of the Mystical angle. There were points where they're stealing the mask, but you don't show that on TV because that's not within the story. It's not culturally relevant. And this is the point I make sometimes is I'm gonna say you Yanks here. My alt name, my name I use online is American Numbers. The story behind me using American Numbers is I am not from the U.S. I am from Puerto Rico. I am a colony of the U.S. and I use American Numbers. Ironically, this is like when somebody would ask me who the greatest, the most famous sportsman in America, I would go Lionel Messi, or like because like I'm making the idea is like you don't understand that you calling yourselves American is kind of a bit offensive. It's like if the Germans called themselves Europeans, right? Like
Yeah.
Germany is Europe, right? That would be
Yes.
kind of like sucks. Now
Basically, if you're in the Western Hemisphere, you're an American. If you're Southwestern Hemisphere, you're South American. You're a Notre Americano if you're living in the
the point I'm making is that the fact that you have the word that you use for yourselves as citizens, being Americanos, goes into the fact that like you don't understand. I mean, but this is the way you are. I mean, you push your culture out, and it's sometimes you don't understand that like you're not respecting somebody else's culture when you say something. The
Yes.
line I said to Larry is like, yeah, like SRS should have called them Latinx wrestlers. Like the Latin, like because essentially, like, and again, like I'm because their word essentially that was a comment on that's not the word we use for that particular situation. It's not a word that works in Spanish. So you imposing a word that isn't part of the culture is kind of like everyone from Latin America is looking at you like, okay,
Arturo, I think the one comment I made, where you don't have to translate this for BJ. Well, we could translate it off the air, but like, pinche güero.
yeah, I mean, like essentially SRS. I mean, he did something that was heel. It's a heel move, right? Showing that picture of the heel move. And
I'll say this. I will always because I'm a journalist. I will fall on the side of journalism. So I don't have a problem with him doing that because he's not a wrestling person. He's a wrestling media person, but he's also an American one.
Yeah.
If this was let's say a heel, let's say a company decided to run this photo, I would have an issue with that.
Well, I mean, like, okay, but this is kind of like, okay, so a newscast can choose to show a picture of an underage criminal, right? And they don't.
But we're not. This is, I mean, I don't think that's a fair comparison.
I'm saying, like, essentially within the culture, it's not something that's done. And you just say, like, it's insensitive within the culture to do this, right? And this is like, and if you do this, you're going to be a heel, and the people from Mexico are going to get mad at you, and Latin America are going to get mad at you, and you have to understand that. And like, the moment the historians are telling you, hey man, like don't do that, like it's like they're saying, look, we have photos of unmasked wrestlers, like, and we try to avoid doing that because that's kind of something that people ask. This is like burning sources in a way, because effectively you're working with these people and they're saying, hey, please don't do that, right? And you can't, right? But it's a matter of kind of like the respect. I understand what you're saying, but like
you can do it. You like if you're American, you want to show this stuff, you want to get clicks on your thing, you want to aggregate this post, which he successfully over like the last like 4 or 5 days this is blown up on his timeline. And he's getting this many impressions, and I think it got exactly the reaction that he wanted to get. The thing is about it, BJ, just to let you know, this is not a thing about you, but like if you're going to like sort of, and the way that he does it, the way that he's been doing it is like, educate me. Go ahead, have this conversation with me. So what he did was he had DM'd Ernesto Ocampo.
Okay, he's the top. He's one of the top. If not the top guy, he's the guy.
Yeah, the Ernesto Ocampo, the editor-in-chief of Super Luchas, which is one of the longest-running Lucha Libre magazines in Mexico. He also, and like so when Ernesto Ocampo says, "Okay, well, this is why it's disrespectful," and then you go, "Well, how does that apply to me?" And it's just like the disregarding, the sort of like disrespect, and then like sort of challenging Ernesto to say, well, why don't you tell me about it then? And then the refusal to listen to it, it just becomes like something that's simple, right? That didn't have to be like a whole like thing.
I'll say this, if I would say this, if I probably would not have posted it because one, I work in a differently, like I do some wrestling news. I do
Yeah.
but I work in a completely different area of wrestling news than Sean. Okay.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be something I'd be concerned with. I also know that, and I'm not trying to defend him here. I'm just trying to say that because I mean, Sean could defend himself. He's a big boy, but I'll just say that I know his experiences in the past have made him kind of stubborn and given him, he shows a lot of background and stuff. And a lot of people think a lot of times this is because of, he's just being a jerk, but he's also had to deal with some pretty serious situations. And I think that's probably hardened him at times to some criticism. Um, I'll say that, in the end, it's just going to have to be, it'll be judged by his readers and wrestling fans. And it's like, and he's going to have to make the decision about it later on, whether, I mean, I've disagreed with Sean before. I mean, especially with how people reacted to Bruce Mitchell. And this was years ago. Most people reading, listening, weren't they? But in the Brody thing, I mean, I don't think people. I think that a lot of the wrestling media at the time reacted towards Bruce like they did because they had not dealt with a really serious story in the wrestling business in a long, long time. There hadn't been any like massive long, like hadn't been. I mean, there was a time where we were losing 3 to 4 wrestlers a week due to heart attacks in their 40s. There was the Chris Benoit story. There was the rapes. There was all this stuff. And for a long time, when a lot of these guys were coming of age, so I came from that point of view where Brody Lee, he passes away. I want a straighter statement from the company. A lot of people saw that and they saw that as being insensitive. I'm seeing it as like, I don't trust the wrestling business to tell me. And it was whether, I don't care if it's AEW or anybody else.
I think
now, granted,
to defend Bruce, that was a fair question to ask, particularly for a startup.
Yeah.
At the time, and I understand, like I said, look, we don't want to trade. And there's
I'm not a huge Mark Madden fan, but he was a legitimate sports columnist for a long time, and he flat said that was the day wrestling journalism died, because that got to a point where you couldn't ask a question about the most important possible thing you could ask a company. And I don't think, that maybe that's true, but I think that. But the thing is that I've seen a lot of the same people who were critical of Bruce, and I think Sean's one of them, who stood up during the Grant situation and were asking hard questions at times. And that's just my point of view on it. But I'll say in the end, but the point is, I think, but at the thing is like his, it'll come down to like, if Ernesto was asking me to do something and take it down, I would probably do it. Now, I don't know, but also I have not dealt with the threats and the crap that Sean has dealt with building Fightful. So it's hard for me. It's hard for me to put myself in.
Because sometimes you read those responses and then you read like, I'm not going to repeat what was written there, but I'm like, the internet is full of like sad, depressed people, disturbed people. So
he's built his site based off of social media engagement. He's very, very good at it. And at the same time, there comes a cost with that. And I'm not saying he should have not built it on engagement, because this is how the game's played right now.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and I can tell you this, I'm used to this crap because of my, my occupation. But the shit he has been told and done to and had done to him and said to him, and threats against him and the people doing it is insane. And he will stand, if he thinks he's right about something, he will stand up hard for it. And I mean, he's had people talk trash about his wife, do terrible things like that. He's had some people show up where he was like at a show one time just to come down and confront him. He's dealt with some insanely crazy shit. This is why he kind of like when JD from New York or whatever that stupid podcaster's name was talking trash. I mean, Sean will just say, look, let's just meet in public and see if he'll really say this to my face. Like, he will take it to that point. I kind of respect him for that. Now, and I'll say this right now. If Ernesto, just being me, if I'd posted a photo of that and he texted me, which first of all, if I got a DM from Ernesto, I'd be thrilled. The dude's awesome.
He's great.
Yeah.
He's awesome, and if he asked me to take it down, I would take it down. But at the same time, to me, it's not a news story I would care about. It's not a picture I would care about. I don't know what it is to Sean and how he sees it.
I think effectively there was a path to him kind of, and again, I don't think
there was a path maybe to this being handled in an way that better. Maybe both sides would have been better. But I can tell you that I'm not defending. I'm not. You know, I don't want to.
I think Sean was wrong to put it up, but I understand why he put it up.
Yeah.
And I don't begrudge him putting up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But he needs to understand that by doing that, it's a heel move, and it's going to heal him.
That's like you said, it's a heel move, and it's also this is where. So I understand. You'll probably think I'm crazy when I say this. I took a lot of Spanish classes, and I'm not saying this makes me an expert in Spanish or Spanish-speaking countries, but I understand when you talk about American numbers and you mentioned why you called it that, I understand it immediately, because that's one of the first things when you're going through any of these classes, you're learning about culture, is just the insult it is. You're basically dismissing 85% of the continent, right? When the way people in the United States use the term American just to mean them. And so I just want you to know that I understand the sensitivity around these cultural things. And I think that, you know, from his perspective, I could see why he would keep doing that. That's not necessarily a decision I would make because of the cultural thing. But at the same time, you know, this gets into things that, you know, it's like trying to explain to people that are mad about NAFTA, because I live in a part of the country where we got hit with offshoring, and they really hate Mexico and China because around this area. And I think that's why a lot of the anger towards immigrants is so high in our areas, because a lot of these jobs are offshore to Mexico. And the thing is though, that those people don't realize is that most people in Mexico never made the middle class wages they were promised. And at the same time, NAFTA absolutely raped the agricultural economy in all of Latin America, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just this culture of ours and the way we do news here, you're just not aware of that other side of it, which is why I try to report things the way I do sometimes. I try to go in empty-headed sometimes, because I'm like, okay, one of my job here is, it's like I'm writing for a queer website sometimes, and I'm doing stuff on police brutality. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm a straight white guy. I don't know what these lived experiences are. So what I have to do is I have to use my fingers to take these other people's voices and put them on and make it print. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah,
but I just want you to know, you guys, I respect your opinions more on this issue than anybody. I honestly think if anybody could have probably talked him into not doing that, it would have been you and Larry.
Yeah, I mean, I understand probably what Sean did. I mean, I think the point I'm going to raise is it's a weird thing that, like, it's hard in the U.S. because the stories are, and it's very much as English speaker, you get everything from one perspective, really. And you think you're getting it from multiple perspectives. Really, it's kind of like there's a certain, like, through line through that. And it's funny because if you're like a Spanish speaker, you're getting Univision and you're getting Telenoticias, and your perspective is slightly different. And if you're like me, who's outside, who's also getting like the international news, like my perspective on stuff is like I'm used to getting like three perspectives on everything, and it makes you kind of more appreciative of the differences and understand how everything is kind of coming from. So that, like, you
see, most countries have that. You know, if you're in Britain, you're getting news from France, Germany.
Yeah,
you're getting, and it's like in the United States, you're just getting what you get, and it's like, so you never know what another perspective is, and like it, you know, this probably sounds stupid to you guys, but it was until I got out of high school where it's like, you know, if I really want to know these subjects I'm studying, like politics and foreign relations, I should probably read news from outside the United States to see how other people view it. And it's like, I know, but it's like, that's something you guys grew up with. And it's like, it's something, it's just totally
media
retarded for, it's like, it's so stupid to the fact that I have to be in my 20s to realize that. Like, I feel stupid for it. But at the same time, it's like, this is something that everybody else has mastered or mature about by the time they get to that age. And it's how we can make these stupid, and this is why we make some of the stupid voting decisions we do. And it's why we act like bombing a sovereign country in the Middle East is like the third peg on a newsreel. It's just stupid. It cheapens our humanity. You know?
I mean, the thing is, I'll make the point about like dissonance, right? So if you're painting this particular government. Like if mass media is painting this government as this evil thing, I'm talking about like a certain set of mass media in the U.S. It's this really evil thing, right? Okay, and if they're really evil on doing this, and now they start this war, I'm supposed to think this war is good. And again, like this is me viewing it from as an outsider. This is not how it's being covered outside. It's like people are like, okay, so what is going on? And then people don't. Nobody wants this. So you're in a situation where like the messages you're presenting do not seem to align with each other. It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
And it just immediately falls into lockstep. And you're like, it's kind of funny when you hear all this stuff. Or like honestly, people like are like, okay, so this doesn't seem to line up. Right? Yeah. But I mean, like we're really a little topic. I mean, I think like,
but I think
Larry, is everybody okay at your house? I keep hearing somebody hacking their head off.
Yeah, that's my father-in-law. He is a former smoker, so he always makes it.
I know you had the cough really bad. I was just seeing if everybody's okay.
Yeah. What have we not covered?
I think we've covered everything, but I just wanted to.
I mean, we really didn't dig into Road Dogg real hard, but who gives a shit, really? I think we can do something on him.
I'll say this: I think that there's a chance that like Triple H might be on the hot seat down the line, depending on how this plays out. Which is the point I was making. And it is interesting that like the replacements they're in the building. Like it's like I said, like if they want somebody. Maybe he gets the thing where like it's like Dana, where like he's not necessarily running day to day, but he's a figurehead.
I mean, the news is he's not there. He's not there at SmackDown. He's not there at Raw. He's not at the pay per view.
They have I forget her name, Alice Williams, I think her name. But what's the name of the new head of booking over there or creative for SmackDown?
I'll be honest. I will stick to my column prediction till the I think it's going to be I don't think Triple H is long. I just think he's there to get fired because at some point they're going to lose money. They got to bounce stock back. And what do you do when you want to bounce your stock back? And the thing is like the thing is that the reason that Vince was kept around by UFC is because there was always this thought and feeling that the only person that can make money nationally on wrestling was Vince McMahon. And the thing is Tony Khan killed that idea within 2 years. Triple H killed that idea further. And it's like, now it's like, okay, you look at that company, Paul Heyman's there. You look at that company, Brian Gerwitz is there. You look at that company, Cody Rhodes is there. He helped launch another company.
I know. Like my prediction is that it'll be Taker. If it's somebody, it'll be Taker.
I think you're absolutely right. I was kind of. You said this. You were the first person I heard say this, and then once I started seeing what was happening in AAA, and then and what you were saying about having to be somebody that's a big name and a wrestler, I'm like, I remember seeing it. I'm like, it's gonna. You were absolutely right. It's gonna
be Undertaker. It'll be like, and he has the. Him, Borash, Abyss, those guys are going to be running WWE.
Wouldn't that be the ultimate irony that the guys running WWE would be Cody Rhodes probably is the lead guy, Undertaker, who which is fine, but then also you have Jeremy Borash, who was like the guy who had in Abyss from TNA, and Jeremy Borash was basically treated like garbage by Bob Ryder, and I could go on what an epic scumbag that guy is, but those are the TNA survivors. Talk about that in itself is a hell of a fucking story.
Hey Arturo, you're talking about WWE rating because AEW contracts are also up next year. I wouldn't be surprised if they did spend the money on a Hangman Page and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega.
I tell you this right now, Adam Page will never go there. Politics is just the politics of it. He can't.
Yeah, I doubt he would go there, but I do think they would make the money. They would send.
Let me get my booking prediction down. I think I may have said this before, but I haven't. I want to get on tape. Hangman's beating MJF. And then Hangman's going to lose to Swerve. Ospreay's going to win the Owen by beating Mox. And we're going to get like Ospreay. So this is my prediction. Ospreay Swerve at Wembley. Because again, this is just me thinking about the way Tony books. We know who his partner was. The hot feud you can run on the Silvers. You can run and then you can. And I even said you can even run Ospreay and Hangman on TV as well as the other.
Yeah. It'd be funny though, because you know how MJF canceled the date with Mystery Wrestling for Evil Uno, right?
Uh-huh.
It'd be pretty funny if like he got booked for a movie or something, and like this whole scrambling booking that they're doing in AEW is because of that. But anyway,
So
I
what
think
happened with what happened with Evil now?
he canceled. So MJF canceled a date for Evo Uno in Edmonton, and he's got.
Oh, he was wrestling for Evil Uno.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the thing. The thing with the MJF reign, and I've said this, and I'll mention this, is I think they've done what they needed to do with this reign, and I think that the other
it's better than his last one.
No, you erase that memory. It's been solid. He's put some people over, and I think you're at the point where like it's diminishing returns at this point. If he beats Hangman, what are you doing with him, right?
Yeah,
and I think that like the most logical thing to do is I just laid it out. Hangman wins. Hangman loses to Swerve. And because Swerve beat Kenny, that's already been set up. There's a lot of setup already done for that. So again, if you connect the dots, to me, it seems obvious. People are sweating the whole Hangman thing. I'm like, Hangman's going to win.
Yeah.
I hope. The thing is I think people see this as being a long term. I think they see MJF Osprey as the money match.
Why is that?
It is not.
We already ran that. Like, why
I know.
Would we do that?
MJF Osprey. It's like they ran it for 60 minutes on TV. It's like
DJ, who was Osprey's tag team partner?
It was Swerve Strickland on the Indies before any of this stuff started.
But no. But he was the tag team partner when he left. They were working that angle.
Yeah.
Now Swerve's turn, and I suspect Mox like.
And this is a different Swerve now because
right.
somehow he lost his mind going into the Omega match, and even Nana was upset when he put the vertebraker through the table and tried to kill Kenny, and this just sets it up, and it's like he's getting the Hangman storyline now of just being pushed to the brink.
And you can run Hangman Swerve as a big money match. You run it in an title match, which you never run. You've never cashed that check. Run that match on top, and that's like again, this is the easiest way to draw money, and it feels like everything points to that. People are losing their minds about the MJF thing. Like I don't see it.
Because, I mean, the thing is, I can understand why people are concerned. I can very much because really the
Garrett was concerned about that also. Like him saying like maybe they'll make the right choice. Maybe.
Actually, I did want to cover one more thing. TNA. We were talking about TNA, and we were talking about. TNA, Steph Delander basically put out that she can't work because they can't insure her, right? And I know the whole thing about like them not getting health insurance and whatnot, and I get that. And my answer, and I mentioned this earlier, like wrestlers should unionize. That's costing you billions of dollars of benefits. But I'm going to defend TNA a bit, which is weird for me as an ex-Anthem employee, but I'm going to defend them a little bit because if I cannot insure you, right?
Yeah.
If I cannot get workplace insurance because of the way you're hurt, then I can't book you. And like wrestlers are stupid. I cannot book you and put you in a situation where you can fucking break your neck and die and there's no insurance, right? So I'm going to defend them a little bit and say, like, if they cannot get insured, then I understand why they are not booking her, right? Yeah. The other part is, hey.
So is this an issue? They're just not offering her insurance, or she can't get health insurance, or what? She got like a debilitating
insured.
She can't get insured to work. That's the other part. Like they can't like her. She's hurt so bad that they can't put her on.
Yeah, because she broke her neck like I think 2 or 3 years ago, and then she broke it again. So it's like that's what happened.
Jesus.
And the medical insurance, like I'm not defending the part about the medical insurance. I think wrestlers should unionize and get health insurance from the company. I'm saying that like I understand why you can't put somebody who's broken their neck twice on the show if you can't afford to cover.
You know what TNA would do though is they would say, okay, we can't afford that. We're going out of business, even though they're running on WWE running right now. Yeah. And the thing is, I think it's worth it. It's like if you're an indie wrestler, if you're an indie promoter, how are you supposed to do it? And I guess instead of just paying guys $100 to drive 3 states away and then screwing them and only handing them $50, I guess you actually have to have the money to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. But that's one to go on. I want to thank, of course, since he's not here, I want to thank Garrett Gonzales for coming on and joining us 3 students here. Yeah, he's the Shemp to us. To our Larry Moore earlier.
I'm the Shemp, man. Let's just.
You're the Shemp. Okay. Well, who was the other guy? What was the other guy's name?
Larry Moore, Shemp, and other Mo. No wait, other Larry.
There was another guy. Yeah. But anyway, this has been State of Wrestling. You can catch Garrett Gonzales on Fight Game Media, he's my mentor. We're talking about all these mentors. He's my mentor. You can catch him on Wrestling Observer Live every week. BJ, if people wanted to catch you, where could they catch you?
You can catch me at my Substack, which is bbethel.substack.com. Right now, I have an interview up with Dr. Vaughn Shannon. He's a professor at Wright State. He's also one of the foremost experts in the country on Middle East policy and Middle East politics. And we and him have a discussion about the current Iraq war. So if current events and you're looking for some answers that are kind of down the middle, academic or just kind of like fact based, we're not really into the politics or the hot take part of this. It's definitely not hot take. So if you don't like the hot takes and you want to hear some actual stuff on Iran, it's useful. Come and tune in because it's good.
I'm definitely going to listen to that while I'm showering, so I want that visual out there.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm gonna retweet that post.
Okay.
I'm going to say Dr. Larry is showering while he's listening to this right now. I want everybody to know that.
Yeah. Arturo, as from one person who comes from whose family came from a former American colony to someone else who comes from a United States colony, I give you the last word, man.
So I think this is a really fun episode. Thank you, BJ, for coming on. I thank Garrett for coming on. Hopefully we'll get to talk to Garrett, and I think that we continue hopefully to do shows that people will find interesting. I think that's the hope, and we keep doing it.
Yeah. And as I say all the time, see you next time.